The mighty Frozle Empire, an entire continental superpower, has crushed the little Rand kingdom flat. A young man named Heinrich is told to brace himself, because the harsh reality waiting for him is about to hit like a truck. His commander lays it out in brutal truth: fight, and you're signing your death warrant. They shove it in his face. Being a royal bastard means the only way he survives is by playing along and cooperating. The young prince can't stand the word surrender. It feels like poison in his mouth. But the commander shuts down every other idea like it's pure wishful thinking. Heinrich Schaff understood that knowing his title meant absolutely nothing to their conquerors. The commander's jaw drops as the prince admits his grim truth. He blurts that his own kingdom is trash, and it absolutely drives his commander wild. Yet somehow he still comes off as a charming guy. Meanwhile, the imperial army keeps advancing. 10,000 soldiers strong, marching like a storm headed straight for the battlefield. They got stuck covering the main army's escape. Just 53 men left to hold the line. Heinrich can't forget the court's non-stop sneers, always tossing him aside like he's just a disposable pawn. But he refuses to let his past, or this brutal reality, beat the fire out of him. His pent-up rage finally explodes. He smashes the cup in his grip to pieces. He stares in disbelief at his kingdom's leaders, because how on earth did they dare awaken a monster like that? That nearby portrait of some noble just smugly sneers at him with its dumb grin, like, wow, the perfect face for competence. The commander steps forward, yells for everyone to hold the line, and paints the noble Rice family's legacy like it's their reason to fight. Heinrich and another soldier sit through the history lesson with zero reaction, like it's the most pointless thing they've ever heard. He rages at how rotten his kingdom is, clinging to one thin comfort: the civilian death toll is small. Then he whips around to face the commander, confessing that he'd secretly expected so much more. The commander finally cracks and admits he knows the real truth hiding behind Heinrich's mask. He brags that Heinrich has real political genius, a cool, rational mind, and the rare qualities that prove he's built to rule. But Heinrich snaps back, insisting he's nowhere near ready to lead anyone. But the commander won't back down. He claims he's got a rare, natural gift for leading. He breaks it down. Heinrich pretends to be useless just to win their loyalty. This tiny unit got cast aside like trash, left to rot and die. And get this, every single guy signed up for the job, even the commander himself. They fell in behind him, gambling their lives on every word of his command. Royal composure held tight, a razor-sharp mind and charisma he kept buried. This was a real king, walking around in disguise. The commander lays it out clearly. Heinrich's move flipped everything, turning them from mere subordinates into loyal retainers. He can't stop thinking, what would have happened if that prince had actually gone after the throne with his whole heart? But he knows if he ever shows his real talent, the whole world will spot him and turn him into the next target. He vows their lives to his every order: fight, run, or throw in the towel. Heinrich dodges the question, snapping that he won't make a lazy man carry a decision like that. But the commander's smile snaps away. He's done buying the prince's humble act. His face tightens as he corners Heinrich, pushing him to finally pick a side. The prince's eyes lock in, and the crushing weight of 53 lives slams down on his shoulders. He leans in and asks the commander, "So you want us to slam into a reckless charge and die trying, right for that glory?" The commander shoots back with zero sarcasm, saying he absolutely wouldn't mind at all. Heinrich lays it out for them: either surrender to save their lives, or fight for a nation already on the brink of collapse. The commander shoots back, cool as ice, that either choice works just fine with him. He tells you how, long ago, he swore an oath with his life, promising he'd protect his country no matter what. But from this moment on, his loyalty didn't belong to the Rand kingdom anymore. It belonged to Heinrich, and only Heinrich. He declares that every last man still standing in this unit feels the exact same way. Beyond the soldiers' sharp attention, a silent pledge stands tall, like a vow sworn with no words at all. They'll obey his call, no matter what he decides, no questions asked. The commander smirks and pushes him to pick one choice he'll never regret. No pressure, kid. The weight of their faith slams into Heinrich, and he can't even find words. And then boom, his face cracks with a small, knowing smile. He's finally done. Heinrich's eyes ignite like never before, and he finally nods, accepting their unshakable resolve. He bursts into motion, shouting for every soldier to drop everything and form up right now. The commander can only freeze in place, completely stunned by the prince he's finally unleashed. Heinrich steps in and reassures them, swearing he'll never drive them into a brutal, terrible fate. He declares they'll grab a third option and snatch the future for themselves, even if it burns their reputation. Inside the fortress walls, the tiny garrison huddles up, desperate to hear his plan. He steps up to the other Death Seekers and throws his thanks their way for showing up. The soldiers just grin and chuckle, like his rough, never-changing charm never stops being a punchline. Heinrich fires back, saying he can't survive this mess without a little sarcasm. Honestly, fair enough, kid. And his men erupted into laughter, their morale soaring higher than ever. Heinrich kicks off the briefing and slams them with the brutal truth of their situation. His men fall dead quiet, eyes locked on him as their expressions harden with every word about the enemy's terrifying power. He drops the Empire's first trump card, the most advanced magic on the whole continent, a terrifying system that turned a forbidden art into a weapon, one unleashed by legions of mages. Their second strength hits like a machine, industrial might that churns out advanced firearms in bulk. But just when you think it can't get worse, he lifts 3 fingers, like he's about to unleash the deadliest threat of all. He talks about a legendary terror called the Flame God, an absolute master of magic. A magic god roars into existence, an unstoppable living weapon that can wipe out entire nations in an instant. He reassures them this thing isn't here, because if it were, the war would have ended already. Heinrich can only burst into laughter at the pure insanity of daring to challenge a monster like that. He grins and tells them, if luck is a skill, then we're the real powerhouses. His crew can't buy into his self-deprecating act for a second. From the fortress, their protests slam through the air, begging him to quit the grim talk. To honor their loyalty, Heinrich slams the truth. He'll ditch his incompetent name for good. His soldiers just freeze in shock, staring at the leader they've always known. Right here, right now. Without a single word, the soldier drops to his knee like his body just gave up, and everybody feels it. The rest of the unit drops to quiet bow, heads lowered as they swear their solemn pledge. Heinrich's eyes turn ice cold, because this is exactly how he's going to repay their devotion. He tells them their loyalty saved the kingdom, but even so, its downfall is still coming, no matter what. The commander shouts, driving home the brutal truth. This kingdom already betrayed their prince. The commander gets slammed by a crushing pressure, like a presence he's never felt before is pressing down on his soul. Heinrich blasts out a roar, promising he'll personally lock down the future for every man in this room. He jabs a finger at the royal crest and declares, loud and fearless, that they're the kingdom's real saviors. That useless, lazy prince is finally gone. Now in his place stands a real leader, eyes blazing with pure fire. He declares them the heroes, destined to be remembered forever for saving their nation. The commander snaps to the truth. This is the real Heinrich, a genius who's been hunted and forced to disappear. This is the real prince, the one everyone swore to follow straight into death's clutches. Heinrich yanks himself out of character and, with a sheepish grin, blurts that it was all supposed to stay a secret. Honestly, that transition was way too smooth, my dude. He leans in and spills that he's been holding back a couple of secret tricks, saved right for this exact moment. The commander, always the pragmatist, leans in and demands, do these tricks actually help us win? Heinrich flashes a confident grin, basically daring them to doubt him. His tricks won't just help, they'll blow things wide open. His whole plan targets the Imperial Army's camp, one strike that could flip the entire war on its head. Meanwhile, right there in that camp, an Imperial commander stares at everything, and the whole mess feels painfully boring to him. One of his subordinates strides up to the board leader and calls him, Your Excellency Klaus. Klaus doesn't even try to deny it. His face stays stone cold, like his army's win barely registered. He declares that this whole war, this so-called epic showdown, is nothing but pure tedium. His aide freezes, totally baffled. Wait, we're steamrolling them with almost no losses. How is this even real? But for Klaus, landing a win this effortless almost doesn't even count. An eye-patched woman strides in and laughs off the Rand Kingdom as nothing but pathetic. She can't believe their enemy was stupid enough to bite the bait and charge straight into this fight. Klaus hears the Rand Kingdom's leaders are a complete disaster because they haven't seen a real war in ages. He lets out a heavy sigh, craving a real opponent, someone tough enough to turn this dull job into something that actually feels worth it. The eye-patched woman leaned in and demanded to know what he'd do if the world threw him a total curveball. Klaus's eyes sharpen instantly, and a spark of real interest finally ignites in his gaze. A dangerous little grin creeps onto his face just at the thought of what could happen. At that exact moment, a scout ripped open the tent and dropped to his knees to deliver an urgent report. He confirms the target fortress is right there ahead. About 50 soldiers are stacked up outside, waiting for something to go down. The scout looks totally lost and blurts out that the enemy soldiers are lined up with flawless precision, like they're perfectly organized for a strike. And there, right in front of all of them, stands their commander, one lone man, just waiting to send them into action. It's Heinrich, standing alone, blazing with defiance, ready to stare down the full might of an empire, and somehow, this is his welcome party. Klaus shoots up to his feet, demanding answers for this ridiculous report. His subordinates can only stare in confusion. This move is pure unease, like he's hiding a plan with no obvious reason. Outside the fortress, Heinrich's men line up in flawless silence, frozen like statues. A savage grin finally tears through Klaus's boredom as he snatches up his greatsword. He boldly declares he's rushing straight to the front lines to witness this spectacle firsthand. The eye-patch woman freezes in shock, staring at his reckless outburst like, "What are you doing?" She throws herself in front of him and snaps that it's way too dangerous for the commander to go. Klaus and his officers burst into motion right away, sprinting toward the danger, their curiosity spiking at this mysterious enemy leader. He can't decide if this move is a fearless gambit or pure stupidity, but either way, you've gotta see it. Leaning in toward the front, Klaus surveys the lone prince and flashes a curious, knowing smirk. Klaus locks onto the scene, zeroing in on the man with reddish-brown hair and a fighter's body. The Imperial commander smirks and leans in, asking if you're finally ready to meet the one who's really in charge. Heinrich's eyes narrow as he steps up, ready to formally introduce himself. He throws out his name and title. Then, like it's a disaster announcement, calls himself the Rand Kingdom's incompetent youngest prince. From the Imperial Army's viewpoint, he's nothing but a lone man standing in the face of thousands. Heinrich stares his opponent down and calls him out by name, shouting that he's none other than the famed war dragon. The man steps up and declares, "I'm Klaus Julius Frusel, yes, the Emperor's own son. He's the Empire's second prince, a living legend feared as the war dragon." Every neighboring nation trembles at his personal combat skill. Heinrich shrugs like it's nothing, then tells them to end this stupid war and grab a drink instead. Klaus's officers just stand there, stunned beyond words, staring at this wildly bizarre proposal like it makes zero sense. The woman with the eye patch clocks his nerve and fires back, grilling him about his ridiculously casual, flippant attitude. But Klaus just throws back a laugh, wondering out loud if Heinrich is a fool, or actually a man worth his time. He drags up the intel on the fourth prince, lazy, arrogant, and totally worthless. But when Klaus finally locks eyes with the man standing in front of him, doubt hits hard, and those reports start feeling like lies. A twitch of suspicion snaps across the war dragon's face. Something feels horribly wrong. Klaus' aide clocks the shift instantly. Klaus, guard, snaps up like a tripwire just got pulled. He's not buying it. He's sure this is some desperate trick meant to force a surrender and keep him alive at any cost. Heinrich's stare never wavers, because surrender is something he flat-out refuses to even consider. The Imperial Prince's cocky smirk finally cracked, and for the first time, he looked genuinely rattled. Heinrich shuts that down fast. He's got zero plans to surrender without tearing into the fight. Klaus challenges everything, demanding to know what any of this pointless resistance is even supposed to achieve. Heinrich straight up admits that if he'd been by himself, he would have caved, surrendered, and fled the battlefield. The war dragon squints, burning through the smoke to figure out what the young prince is really up to. But Heinrich swears that for the sake of the men standing behind him, he can't just fold and give up. Klaus levels a blunt warning. If they pick a fight, the Imperial army won't hold back for a single second. Heinrich declares it plain and deadly. This isn't just a fight, it's payback, a final stand for his men's lives. It's his way of repaying their loyalty, a duty he feels in his bones, both as their lord and as a man. From the fortress walls, his soldiers stare out with faces set in unshakable resolve. Klaus can't believe this logic. Guest honor isn't even in the Imperial training manual. Klaus lets out a furious roar, slamming the prince for his incompetence, demanding he snatch back his words and beg for his life. But Heinrich just smirks, like, yeah, he's ready to take on this so-called lizard prince. Then he throws out an old-school duel, just him and his opponent one-on-one, to settle everything for good. The war dragon roars yes, and barrels forward in a raging charge, so powerful the earth starts to crack under every step. But the second their blades crash together, Klaus freezes, because his attack just gets completely shut down. Their collision slams into the world so hard the earth shatters, proof of just how insane their power really is. Heinrich just shoves him aside with pure ease, and the Imperial prince goes stumbling back, hat flying. Klaus can't even breathe. He just realized that useless prince wasn't bluffing at all. The guy's a real fighter. Our boy fires back with a ruthless taunt, asking if he honestly thought he'd be nothing more than a damn stepping stone. The war dragon's eyes narrowed, processing this brutal new reality. He'd hold back every ounce of his madness, but only if there was a plan. Klaus scoffs and flat out insists that only a real master can turn the tide of war. He slams his foot down and brags that this power is a privilege meant for nobody else, only him. Heinrich's eyes sharpen as he dares the war dragon to come at him. Klaus hoists his massive greatsword, burning with intent to smash that so-called useless prince to pieces. He rips into a devastating swing, and steel flashes like a storm as pure fury surges through him. But Klaus's own men are left speechless, because Heinrich's defense hits with wild speed and crushing power. The Imperial prince flips the whole game plan, ditching brute force to unleash a lightning storm of razor-precise strikes. That eye-patch woman knows Klaus. Magic turns him superhuman, so how in the world is this kid still keeping up? The war dragon's eyes fly wide, with pure disbelief at what he's seeing. Heinrich isn't only defending. He's sprinting forward, cutting the gap, and launching the attack. The war dragon unleashes a brutal storm of strikes, but every single one misses its target. Heinrich's eyes burn like cold steel, and his focus snaps to perfect as he slashes through the assault. Klaus snaps to it. His opponent isn't casting magic to attack at all, but to dodge and vanish with ruthless precision. But is Heinrich just dodging the truth? Because the way he stares says there's way more going on. The Imperial officers can only gawk in stunned disbelief, as the whole scene spirals before their eyes. Suddenly, the defender flips the script. His own blade turns into a razor-bright silver blur as he goes on the attack. He tightens his grip on his sword and pours every last ounce of willpower into a brutal counterattack. Imperial soldiers stare in disbelief as their legendary prince gets shoved backward for real. Heinrich roars, flashing that grin like, "I'm just getting started." Totally looks like he's been restrained this whole time. He smashes straight through Klaus' defenses, and with one jaw-dropping burst of courage, he tackles the war dragon head-on. The war dragon's eyes flare wide with pure shock as the impact hurls him out of balance. Heinrich knocks the Imperial prince flying, slamming him face-first through dirt and snow. Klaus jerks his gaze upward, completely stunned by how fast his opponent moves, so fast it's almost blinding. But Heinrich isn't finished. He whips his sword into the air, launching it like a lethal bullet. Klaus thrusts his arm up at the last second, desperately trying to shove the blade aside. The sword's tip bites into his flesh, then ricochets away with a loud, metallic clang. Heinrich's own weapon rips out of his hands and sails away, and he's left staring like he can't believe what just happened. So yeah, skin of steel wasn't just some metaphor after all. He freezes and stares at his own hand, stunned that his opponent's body feels so impossibly hard. He remembers the rumors. People swear the war dragon's skin can turn aside any attack. Klaus jerks to his feet and declares that regular swords and guns can't touch him in the slightest. Heinrich scoffs and dismisses the war dragon as nothing but a flashy lizard. Klaus admits he's shocked by Heinrich's skill, but he doesn't flinch. He's still dead sure his defense holds. Even though everything caught him off guard, he's still dead certain. There's not a single way he's losing this duel. Klaus breaks down Heinrich's fighting style and shuts it down. Just speed, no real punch. But Heinrich just flashes a grin, teasing Klaus. So really, are you sure you can't be defeated? Heinrich calls it a stalemate, but he insists. This duel is nothing like a war. He shoots his hand up, and his men instantly lock in. No words, just that deadly silent signal. On the fortress walls, the soldiers march in perfect sync, locking and loading their firearms for what's about to hit. Heavy artillery locks onto the Imperial Prince, right in the crosshairs. The war dragon's face turns pitch black when he clocks it. This private one-on-one chat just got an audience. Imperial officers shriek in alarm as they finally spot the sudden threat closing in on their prince. But here's the twist. The danger isn't crawling out of the fortress. It's lurking inside their own ranks. Klaus looked up, and suddenly he was boxed in, his own soldiers raising rifles and aiming straight at his head. Heinrich stands across the field now gripping two swords, and his trap has just snapped shut perfectly. He tells them this. Even a war dragon can't dodge a relentless barrage forever. On the fortress walls, Heinrich's own men gawk in shock, right there beside the enemy. Klaus demands to know one thing. Does Heinrich honestly think this stalemate means he's already won? But Heinrich can't ignore it. Klaus II is a true one-man wrecking crew, strong enough to flip the whole battlefield by himself. The war dragon clicks into place. If Heinrich swings now, his blistering speed will tear through everything, leaving chaos and casualties in its wake. With his own men's lives hanging by a thread, Klaus throws out one last, desperate chance to surrender. Heinrich's grin stretches wider and wider as he flat-out refuses to surrender. The war dragon squints at him, and a brutal disappointment spills out like a blade. What a disgrace. Klaus calls his bluff, shoots a hand up in the air, and orders his men to smash in and attack. Yet Heinrich freezes in place, and that terrifying smile lingers as his eyes start to glow. The Imperial Prince roars the order again, daring the next volley of gunfire to finally put an end to this. But then just like that, a beat slips by, and all that greets him is dead silence. Klaus whirls around, and the confidence he had moments ago finally snaps, turning into pure confusion. He rips into his troops, demanding to know why they're ignoring a direct order. Then one Imperial soldier freezes, staring at his own hand as a strange magical sigil starts to glow. Their fingers were locked up solid, unable to yank the triggers. Turns out Heinrich's little setup was way more brutal than just aiming some guns. Klaus's aide makes it clear. Every weapon and every spell they've got is totally locked down, sealed airtight. The war dragon can only cough out a strangled sound of pure disbelief. Then his shot crumbles into a wild, manic laugh, because this is the best fight he's had in ages. Heinrich fires off a sarcastic apology for not ripping into an all-out attack sooner. With a devilish grin, he laughs and swears the real show is only just now kicking off. Klaus roars at the top of his lungs, demanding to know what kind of dark trickery he's been fed. Heinrich keeps his cool and answers the enemy's question about where the fool is. He promises a special exception and drops the truth, though it's obvious he's savoring every second of it a little too hard. The Imperial Prince goes dead silent, and it finally clicks. Heinrich jabs the memory back in, reminding him that all he'd seen before was pure speed and nothing else. Klaus spots something weird. No matter how fast Heinrich is, his clothes barely even flutter. Heinrich snaps, "Don't mistake me for being fast, I'm not. They're just crawling like snails." The war dragon can only freeze there, staring in terror as its mind crashes against the impossible claim. He tells you straight up, this isn't a muscle thing at all, it's a concept you've got to grasp. He finally spills the truth, then freezes time for everyone else, leaving only himself moving. A terrifying grin blooms across his face, and just like that, The deed is finally done for real. Klaus can barely get the words out. His composure is blown to pieces by what he just learned. He roars that if this is real, then Heinrich's power isn't human at all. Yeah, no kidding, Sherlock. Heinrich then leans in and asks if that power feels just like the Empire's own flame god. And right then, the legendary war dragon discovers what real fear feels like. A wild, unseen power explodes outward from the young prince. His hair crackles with pure, overwhelming energy. Heinrich's eyes aren't dull and useless anymore. They burn with sharp, undeniable competence. They now blaze with the icy glow of a ruler who won't be questioned. Klaus can't take it anymore. He grabs his head, stunned to the point of disbelief. He lifts his gaze, and what stares back isn't a prince at all. It's a monster wearing human skin. Heinrich lifts one hand, and you can feel the moment he's about to break loose with his real power. From the far side of the battlefield, he braces himself to smash the old rules of this war and redraw them his way. A jagged tidal wave of razor-sharp ice bursts up from the frozen ground. Looks like winter decided to crash the Empire's party early. The Imperial army gets swallowed whole. Then they get smashed to pieces by a magic that should not even exist. Klaus's expression contorts with pure disbelief as the whole situation flips on a dime. He looks down and sees his own feet slammed into a brutal cage of jagged ice. The legendary war dragon stands dead still, ice locked in place, unable to move an inch. He roars with fury, and even his superhuman strength can't touch a single bit of that magic. Panic crashes through the Imperial ranks as soldiers get sealed in, their fear spiking through every heartbeat. Klaus can only stare in terror as his invincible army gets wiped out in an instant. The whole battlefield went still, thousands of soldiers trapped in one brutal moment, frozen as if time got snapped. The Imperial prince can't even wrap his head around how this is happening. An easy win, my foot. Across the field, Heinrich stands rock steady, the calm heart of the chaos he set loose. A wicked grin crawls onto his face as he drinks in the war dragon's despair. Klaus finally realizes it. The magic god's power is real, a living legend breathing right in front of him. Heinrich lunges one step forward, owning the frozen, silent battlefield like it's his stage. The war dragon can only clench his teeth. His rage smashes into an absolute power that won't even budge. Heinrich looms over him, smirking and asking how it feels now that the tables have fully turned. Klaus erupts in a furious roar, screaming that this war turned into a total disaster, and he's the reason. He just flashes a grin like, now that Klaus is locked in, they're finally talking about what comes next. But even in crushing defeat, Klaus still claws for one last mercy. If he's going down, his men are. Heinrich drops into a seat and casually tells the prince, "Yeah, I'm kind of getting ahead of myself." He flicks a dismissive wave, acting like the legendary war dragon is nothing more than a bratty, pouting kid. Back at the fortress, a soldier drops to his knees as a weird, glowing light engulfs him. A soldier hoists a plain flag high in the air, flashing the signal that parley is about to begin. Klaus's eyes snap wide with pure shock. Right there, a flag of negotiation like the world just shifted. Heinrich needles him, smirking like, "So you really think you've got the nerve to refuse?" The war dragon can do nothing but stand there, his thoughts crashing as humiliation burns through him. His frustration explodes into a silent, disbelief-shattering scream. Heinrich flashes a grin that screams satisfaction, because the hunter just got turned into the prey. With the battlefield locked in stillness, the surrender terms get nailed down. Later, Heinrich finally admits he never even wanted to pull a stunt that dramatic. The commander admits he nearly collapsed the moment he clocked it. The prince wasn't just a prince at all, but a magic god standing right there among them. Who saw that coming? Heinrich grumbles that he swore he'd bury his power forever, and he's furious the commander shoved him into doing it. He tells them, "As the prince of a doomed nation, I had zero leverage to bargain for anything." So he casually tells the defeated war dragon, "All right, my terms are the ones you're going to accept now." The commander stared at the Empire's misfortune, realizing they'd gone up against a god who could outtalk and outclass them at every turn. Then it all spills over. He has a small meltdown, blaming his own lousy luck for unleashing this monstrous mess. He laughs it off, playing it cool like he's just a timid guy craving a quiet life. "Yeah, sure, buddy." Heinrich's face screams, "That was it." Like the whole performance barely even registered. He realizes that no matter if you're a magic god or a lord, the weight on your shoulders never changes. A bright, small smile snaps back onto his face as he accepts this new reality. After the negotiations end, Heinrich steps out alone and crosses the silent battlefield, his footsteps echoing in the quiet. The commander lays a steady hand on his shoulder, and that quiet touch screams support without a single word. The eye-patched woman leans in and declares, "All the preparations are done. Now we're ready to welcome a magic god." In the middle of the imperial camp, soldiers posted their lives at the gate, circling a huge tent like it was the last fortress standing. She swings open the moment and declares she's brought Heinrich straight to face the Empire's own magic god, Ludo. Inside, a spiky-haired man with a fur-collared cape is waiting, ready for them to walk through the door. Heinrich drinks in the lavish surroundings, utterly stunned, nothing like a regular military tent. His gaze snaps to an ornate tapestry draped on the wall. Ludo tells Heinrich that this tent is reserved for special guests, so basically, he's handing him the message, "You're the one they want." He declares, loud and clear, that the Empire bows to strength above everything, especially the kind wielded by another magic god. Ludo then leans in and asks if the Empire's legendary flame god has finally set its sights on Heinrich. Heinrich can only scoff, stunned that this guy is brazenly dumping state secrets straight to the enemy. Ludo leans in and tells him the flame god's family has been serving the Empire for generations, pulling strings with the nobility the whole time. Heinrich can't shake the memory of that legendary flame god, except it's a woman. He finds out she's over 300 years old, and another apostle has already hit 150 too. Looks like immortality isn't a one-off here. It's basically the common thread. Once the history lesson wraps up, Ludo snaps out of it and tells himself it's time to get down to business. His smile vanished in an instant, serious mode locked in, and the pleasantries were officially over. He starts laying out exactly what the Empire demands from this negotiation. Heinrich barrels in and shuts him down, laying out his terms with icy confidence. Ludo's eyes slit with focus as he weighs the prince's ridiculously bold demand. He stares at the Rand Kingdom's banner and admits they started this war like total fools. Ludo nods along, then makes it crystal clear. His power only reaches as far as brokering a ceasefire agreement. Ludo makes it crystal clear. A real peace treaty only stands when the Emperor throws down his verdict. But Heinrich reassures him, saying he's not demanding some full treaty. The imperial magic god freezes, totally thrown off by the prince's weird, unexpected answer. He can't shake it. Why won't Heinrich cash in his power and go for a real peace deal? Heinrich then throws a bombshell. He only wants a ceasefire because he's planning to surrender for real. Ludo just lets out a raw shout of pure disbelief at that sudden, insane declaration. Even her own subordinates freeze in disbelief as the eye-patch woman scrambles to mask her shock. He demands answers. How could someone with that kind of power just throw it all away? He figures it out. Heinrich never planned to fight, not from the very start, and that's exactly what he was gearing up to do. Heinrich flat out says he has zero reason to save the Rand Kingdom. Handing a magic god to those fools would be a total disaster. And yeah, he's got a point. Ludo shoves him forward and demands to know what he'd do if he seized control of the kingdom. Heinrich just shrugs it off, like he's already exhausted by the boring political mess he'd have to slog through. He lays it out plain. If we bow to the Empire, we're just handing ourselves to someone else's mess. Ludo slams the table, steaming over the prince's careless reply about his own destiny. It's basically saying that once a magic god's power starts spilling into another nation, there's no stopping it. It's bound to happen. Heinrich calmly sips his tea and shrugs it off like it's just a simple tax for all the chaos he's caused. But Ludo refuses to swallow it. He's screaming that a man can't just walk away from his homeland like it means nothing. He realizes that if Heinrich surrenders, his own people will label him a traitor. Heinrich looks genuinely stunned, pressing, "Did I screw it up? was saving my men the wrong move, even if it cost the kingdom. A sly little smile flashes across his face as he straight up admits he's got a twisted side. And you're not even gonna argue, buddy. And just like that, the Empire and the Rand Kingdom slap their names on a ceasefire agreement. The truth hits the world like wildfire, and that fragile peace suddenly starts to crumble and fly apart. Meanwhile, deep inside the Empire, the Emperor personally snatches the report and starts reading. He grins, hooked by a letter from Klaus, about a third magic god showing up. Young Princess Lisa Lot just stands there, utterly stunned, staring at the news like it can't possibly be real. But then boom, there's this other masked woman, mysterious as a shadow, and she looks downright delighted. That wicked grin of hers says, plain and loud, brace yourself, because things are about to get way more interesting. Back in his quarters, Heinrich finally snatched a rare moment to breathe after everything that just happened. He and his men are dug in at a temporary camp right now. This war is on pause for the moment. He lays out every term of the agreement, the very first move in his grand, twisted master plan. But Heinrich storms into the room and finds his men crushed, shoulders slumped, morale in the gutter. The commander leans in and admits he's still trying to process the shock of his surrender. The younger soldier looks absolutely stunned, because he just can't wrap his head around why his leader made that call. Heinrich snaps, basically telling him, just take it and move on. This is real life, and you need to act like a real people person. Outside, even the guards are grumbling through clenched teeth, convinced their loyalty got miscast and betrayed. Heinrich snaps off their worries with irritation, furious that the Empire now expects his next move on a leash. The commander leans in and demands to know, were the negotiations successful at least a little? Heinrich throws out a brutal question. What would you do if a magic god straight up revealed himself? One of the soldiers isn't convinced for a second. He's staring at the situation like he knows something bigger is cooking behind the scenes. Heinrich throws himself back, stunned to find the situation feels surprisingly friendly, thanks entirely to the capable second prince. He lays it out plain. The Empire's only logical play is to try and win him over fully, no half measures. They'll dangle everything he dreams of right in front of him: power, riches, and a string of women who will chase his every move. His men just stand there, wide-eyed, trying to wrap their heads around this brutal, new political reality. The moment they picture riches and beautiful women, they're instantly in, hook, line, and sinker. Heinrich snaps out of his seat and calls them out for daydreaming on the spot, and you can practically hear their denial stumbling over itself. He lets out a tired sigh and admits it. He absolutely hates the whole idea of that painfully boring socializing. One soldier smirks and starts arguing like it's a sure thing. The women would be a perk they'd actually enjoy. Heinrich just huffs, shaking his head like he's had enough, done with those perverted subordinates for good. He snaps at them, saying they're completely missing the whole point. He declares the strongest chain to lock a person in place isn't gold, it's emotion. His men gawk in terror as he lays out the chilling political truth behind family ties. He keeps going, claiming that the finest shackle of all is a wife born into noble blood. That bond, it's a built-in crack in him, a perfect leash they can yank to control his every move. He snaps at his men to praise him, driving them into utter, confused annoyance. The very next day, Heinrich gets ushered into a set of luxurious quarters inside the imperial camp. He cracks a huge yawn and finally sinks into the rest he's been craving. He jolts upright in that fancy bed, stunned at how incredible his sleep was. Reaching across, he snatches the pitcher of water off the nightstand like he's starving for relief. He pours himself a drink, finally snagging the first real slice of calm he's had in days. A smug grin snaps onto his face, like he's finally snagged the perfect life he's been chasing all along. A voice from the doorway snaps the calm in half. Klaus, the war dragon himself, stormed into the room and demanded to know what Heinrich needed. Heinrich cuts in and admits he only came to the prince to get a few things straight. He checks the situation and realizes there's been zero sign of his guards abandoning their posts. Lazily sprawled on the bed, he tells Klaus he's got zero plans to slip away. Klaus tells him, don't stress, you're free to roam wherever you want. Heinrich looks totally stumped, like he can't decide whether he's always been like this, even back home. The imperial prince gets completely thrown off by that weird, casual question. Klaus clocks Heinrich's boring routine. He keeps to his room, devours books, and crashes in bed, like a king who forgot how to live like royalty. He spits that kind of laziness like it's a crime. No wonder they branded him incompetent. And trust me, his reputation hits the room before he even walks in. Klaus is still stunned. He can't even wrap his head around it, that his huge army got crushed by a single man. He remembers Ludo's wide-eyed shock, and it hits him. They both underestimated the prince. The war dragon's totally flustered. He can barely force out a request for a cup of water. And yeah, that imperial dignity is long gone. Klaus snaps back into business mode and announces that he's brought someone in to make the introduction. A young woman strides into the room, and the whole place goes quiet, like she's already decided to take control. She steps forward and introduces herself as Azur Mirhiram Print, her gaze locked in, calm, steady, and polite. Heinrich's mind sparks to life, and he instantly clocks the Empire's whole, thinly disguised scheme. He suddenly gets it. She's not just his caretaker. She's a top-tier spy, and she's been clocking his every move. But before Heinrich can even take a breath about his new babysitter, Klaus starts up again, because he's got way more to say. The war dragon blares out the news. At last, a reply has stamped its way in from the imperial capital. Heinrich flashes a grin and says, "Took you long enough. Now I can finally read your answer." Back in the Rand Kingdom, someone's losing it, screaming non-stop about who's going to take responsibility. Inside the royal court, the king's council is in total chaos. Men are screaming, hands are flailing, and blame is flying left and right. A terrified official screams that the imperial army is pounding right outside their gates. But the military general charges back in and roars at the civilian official to shut his mouth. He's dead sure the capital's walls will hold them tight, just long enough for reinforcements to crash in. The official snaps back and fires the million-dollar question. What reinforcements do you want? The general brushes it off, saying this kind of mess is for the civil servants to deal with, not the military. But his face totally gives him away, like a silent scream of pure frustration, the kind that screams, "I'm good at this," even if he can't hide how fed up he is. Then Rand of the Eighth steps in. Straight up the king snaps, "Quiet," and shuts the whole debate down. The king of Rand slams his fist down and demands an answer from his bickering council. One official slams his hand down and roars that surrender is their only way out. And then someone insists they stay put, clutch the castle, and beg the outsiders for help. But with their forces shattered, the burning question of how they'll get help hangs there, unanswered. The general pushed for one move: send Crown Prince Edward out as the envoy. But the Crown Prince is laid up, barely saved from death himself. So much for that genius plan. The council plunges into total chaos, and all they've got left is a suicidal last stand. Finally, the king snapped, his face screaming pure, total exhaustion. He clocked that the imperial army hadn't budged yet, so they snatched a tiny second to breathe. The king storms out of the throne room, slamming the door on his useless council behind him. He stalks off, muttering the name of the imperial magic god under his breath. The king realizes that even a worthless pawn can still buy him precious seconds when the fight turns ugly. Meanwhile, a young man with bright eyes bursts into a new city, staring in awe at every stunning view. He's finally stepping into the empire's heart, a massive, magnificent capital that feels like it's roaring with life. Leaning around the corner, he drinks in the scene with a curious grin. As he strides along the riverbank, he takes a hard look at the wild journey that dragged him here to this brand new land. He's completely blown away by the sheer crush of people, like the Empire's power is flexing right in front of him. He can't stop staring. How the heck did they coordinate an invasion across a land that huge? Elsewhere, an official flat-out says the Empire runs on carrier pigeons for messages, pigeons, the height of modern tech. His companion tells Ludo that if he can cook up a better way, the rewards will be huge, then shakes their head and calls it a shame. But the traveler has already dug in his heels. A carriage wheel grinds onward, dragging him deeper into the Empire's very core. A young man locks eyes straight ahead, and that calm, unshakable resolve starts to harden on his face. Through the window, he watches a guard sink into a dispatch, unaware it's just one small piece of a massive game. Meanwhile, Heinrich quizzes his brand-new attendant, pressing Azur to spill what she already knows is about to happen next. She plays it to perfection, smiling politely while delivering a firm, unshakable denial. Heinrich goes dead silent, weighing every inch of her perfectly spun non-answer. A razor-sharp grin flashes on his face, and he declares it's finally time to go all in. Their target is the Imperial Palace, an enormous castle that looks straight out of a legend. A grand carriage rolls up to the palace doors, and its arrival gets announced with full, formal fanfare. Heinrich hops out of the carriage at last and steps straight into the Imperial Palace. But the moment he sees it, his mind blanks and he can't even find a word. He stumbles backward, barely holding himself up as the shock of the reception nearly knocks him out. A young princess stepped up in front of him, surrounded by an honor guard of soldiers and maids. Imperial soldiers line up like stone giants, silent, unmoving, and radiating pure intimidation, as if they're daring you to step closer. The maids stand rock still, their expressions locked tight like they're hiding secrets. Still, somehow it's a warm welcome. Heinrich just stands there, stunned, trying to wrap his mind around this hilariously over-the-top, super formal greeting. The princess beams and greets the ice magic god with a proper, welcoming smile right at her doorstep. She cuts in and declares, "I'm Lyslot Clamfrusel, sent straight by the emperor himself." Her face lights up with pure, innocent joy, so different from the guard around her that it feels like a sudden shock. Her warm smile looked totally innocent, like none of the nasty political games were even happening behind the curtain. Meanwhile, one of his men couldn't resist roasting Heinrich about his brand new, super refined look. Heinrich snaps back with a dry, cutting remark, and you can tell the commentary has him unimpressed. They've been handed the absolute best. So much luxury, it literally knocks the words right out of their mouths. Elsewhere in the palace halls, the Empire's own magic god, Ludo, is getting marched along, escorted every step of the way. Heinrich and his commander get marched through dazzling palace halls. Now they're sitting ducks in the lion's den. Ludo gets escorted through the palace gardens, where breathtaking calm wraps around every step like a soft, deadly spell. A young woman stands outside the grand conservatory, pacing and waiting for him to finally show up. Ludo's eyes widen as he's hit with the shock of seeing his host. It's Princess Lyslot, who floors him with a warm, disarming smile. The Empire's magic god drops to his knees at once, showing nothing but raw respect. He bows and thanks her, grateful for the privilege of this meeting. Ludo suddenly shoots out a heartfelt apology for not giving her a real greeting the first time they met. The princess looks genuinely stunned as he offers that polished, formal apology. She tells him to rise on the spot and makes it crystal clear, when a magic god is involved, his status is law, no questions asked. Guess royalty still has to bow to living legends. Soon they're sipping tea together, and the princess admits, right to his face, that his respect caught her completely off guard. Lyslot thanks him for showing that kind of respect, even to the sister of the war dragon. Ludo tells him that, on the battlefield, he wouldn't dare talk to royalty that freely. But the princess doesn't budge. She declares that in this empire, the magic god's power is law, no questions asked. Her eyes suddenly turn razor-sharp, slicing right through the polite talk. She straight up asks if he isn't scared of getting played and deceived. Ludo lays it out. A magic god could wipe out a whole nation, so showing a little respect is a tiny price to keep everyone safe. Lisa Lutz breaks into a smile, and it's like she's confirming, "Yep, he's every bit as sharp as the rumors claim." Then she tells him to ditch the stiff act and show her the real side of him. Ludo can only gawk at his tea, totally thrown off by her wildly weird request. The princess tells him to chill, because she heard he's usually way more laid back than this. Two of them sit face to face like perfect strangers from polite society, putting on a calm, curated mask, while the tension begs to break. But Ludo can't shake how painfully awkward this whole situation feels. Princess Lyslot isn't just a pretty face. She's a brainy powerhouse, known for her sharp talent and razor-smart intelligence. But that soft smile hides a depth you can't even begin to measure. Ludo can't help but wonder, just how many monsters are hiding in this empire. He clamps down on his formal mask, insisting, no matter what, that acting any other way just isn't proper. But the princess snaps, calling him out and demanding to know if he's just messing with her. Ludo can only force out a strained smile, totally blindsided, because he's clearly never dealt with royalty like this before. Finally, he flings his hands up and wipes away all those stiff formalities like they never mattered. Lieselot lit up, grinning as she thanked him for finally saying yes to her request. She tells him, call me Lieselot or just Lisa. But the moment those words hit, Ludo visibly squirms, clearly not comfortable at all. The princess flashes a brilliant grin, urging him to ditch that rigid royal protocol once and for all. Ludo's like, wait, do I really have to start using my nickname just like that? Because this royal, she's not playing by the usual rules. He frowns at how different her personality is from what he imagined, then accepts her praise anyway. Lieselot clocks it instantly. The rumors swirling about him don't line up with the truth at all. Ludo finally admits he's just an ordinary guy, while Heinrich keeps his real power locked away. He remembers how Heinrich outplayed the Empire's finest, then unleashed his full power exactly when it mattered most. But the princess won't back down. She insists she respects him for the exact person he is. Ludo gets flung into the truth and blurts out that he genuinely thought she was just messing with him. With a bright, warm grin, Lieselot urges them to keep the cozy tea party going. Ludo grits his teeth and reluctantly forces a smile as he agrees to the princess's bizarre request. The next morning, the imperial capital wakes up, and right on cue, a brand new game is about to kick off. Inside the grand imperial palace, the bells blare as a historic meeting is about to begin. Every last street in the city freezes like it's holding its breath, totally clueless about the politics silently swinging behind the scenes. Heinrich's eyes lock in tight, and his mind goes razor-sharp on the gamble he's about to unleash. He lurches one step forward, staring down fate like it's about to be defeated. Right in front of him sits a breathtaking, ornate door. Cross it, and his brand new future is waiting. Agard strides into the court and roars, "I'm Agard," as he unveils the ice magic god before everyone. Those massive doors slam open, and a bright, blinding light floods the hall like it's announcing something huge. Heinrich strides into the huge chamber, one lone prince, walking straight into the lion's den. He strides down that endless road to the throne, and the whole imperial court's eyes lock onto him like they're waiting for fate to strike. And right on that throne sits the ruler of this whole land, Emperor Friedrich, Lord of the Freusel Empire. But he's not alone. There's a woman at his side, silent, unshakable, and downright intimidating. Pure, no-holds-barred contempt flashes across her face. This is Acacia, the legendary flame god, and you can tell she's not thrilled one bit to have company. Heinrich locks eyes with the whole group, and somehow his face gives away absolutely nothing. The Emperor steps forward and speaks first, clocking the arrival of a brand new magic god. Heinrich clocks the total absence of proper etiquette, like a live stress test to see exactly how he'll react. He snaps the truth in place. No need to kneel, because a god doesn't bow to any king. And just like that, he takes the Emperor's casual greeting in stride, all set to jump into the game. The Emperor studies Heinrich's reckless, fearless stance with a deep, thoughtful hum. He declares that it's finally time. No more running around. Now they can have a real, proper discussion. The Emperor finally admits, wide-eyed, that he never in a million years thought he'd live long enough to face a brand new magic god. Heinrich goes along with it, acting shocked to the bone when royalty finally grants him an audience. The imperial court huddles in stunned whispers, because they can't believe they're really negotiating with a defeated prince. Heinrich can't stop thinking about how his very face totally flipped the war on its head. He admits it. He's been pulling the Empire's strings so expertly that it's all led them right to this moment. The Emperor skips the small talk and zeroes in, demanding to know what the prince is really chasing after. Heinrich's eyes squeeze shut with intensity, and the fate of nations hangs on the very next word that slips from his mouth. His reply won't just steer the Empire's destiny. It'll decide the fate of the whole continent. Heinrich slams his fist down and says his intentions haven't budged. Then he drops the truth. He's got two wishes. First, he slams down a demand, a guarantee that his men and their lives and livelihoods will be protected. And second, for every loyal man who followed him into the chaos, he demands the title, Heroes of the Nation. The emperor weighs it all in silence, clocking how deeply the prince cares about his subordinates' honor. Heinrich stands his ground, and not even the crushing weight of the imperial court can shake his resolve. The emperor laughs at how small the demands are. Like, of course, a man who can have anything wouldn't ask for much. With a huge grin, he nods and locks in the deal, swearing he'll make Heinrich's wishes come true. Heinrich looks straight up, stunned by how fast and how cheerfully the emperor accepts it. He drops a formal bow, grateful for the emperor's call, and just like that, the deal is sealed. But when Heinrich whips around, the emperor bears his real thoughts, because letting a magic god slip away was never on the table. The emperor tells him, "Don't worry," but his face gives away nothing at all. Heinrich realizes a life ruled by strict discipline is something he just can't step into so easily. The court murmurs in tense clusters, side-eyeing the new magic god as they scrutinize his brazen, vulgar request. A sharp, knowing grin flashes across the emperor's face. He explodes into laughter, praising the boy like he's just clocked the real meaning of the finer things. "All right then, your highness." Heinrich's face darkens at once. He'd warned them this exact disaster was coming. Even after the empire's dealt with, he knows the theocracy is still lurking as a real threat. He never saw it coming. He turned his subordinate's stubbornness into the perfect opening. The emperor steps up in full ceremony and officially announces that the empire will welcome the magic god of Rand. But the flame god cuts in on the spot, snapping at the emperor to watch his mouth in front of everyone. The emperor snaps back and yanks Akashia's focus away. Heinrich is part of the empire now, but the flame god just smirks, calling out how rough his tone sounds, and orders him to stop. She insists it's just proper etiquette, like she's only doing what the moment demands. Heinrich snaps that the public is done for, and the real meeting finally kicks off. Ludo looked totally baffled, staring at the chaos like, "Wait, who just issued an unofficial order?" The rest of the court is just as clueless. Everyone's frozen, and the tension won't let up for a second. Ludo snaps under his breath, furious that they've yanked him into this political circus. Akashia's grin twists into something predatory as she snaps that this is now the realm of the magic gods. Like, did everything just jump to disaster instantly? Ludo can only stare as his face tightens, fear creeping in with every second. Akashia storms off, grumbling about the creepy farce they made her drag herself through. Akashia flashes a sly smirk and, with perfect formality, announces herself as the legendary flame god. The emperor snarls that all she did was call him a brat like some old hag, and he's furious. "So much for respecting your elders." Heinrich tries to sound proper, but Akashia makes it painfully clear she wants nothing to do with it. She brushes off the small talk and orders him to speak like he actually means it in this unofficial meeting. Our boy freezes for a split second, realizing the flame god's power isn't just heat. It's pure, brutal destruction. Then Akashia snaps her focus elsewhere, and her expression goes ice cold in an instant. Her eyes pin Ludo in place, and that sweet smile flips into a terrifying, unhinged grin. Ludo's eyes shot wide with raw terror as the flame god locked onto him. The air suddenly snaps tight with a crushing pressure that slams into you like a wave. Heinrich leans in, eyes locked, studying the empire laid bare's real power moves and who's truly in control. Akashia locks eyes with Ludo, and the two magic gods freeze in a deadly, silent standoff. Her smile slices through the air, pure condescension, as she savors every ounce of fear she's planted in him. Ludo clenches his teeth and snaps, "Do we really have to put on a show this intimidating?" She tosses out a fake apology like it's nothing, and makes it painfully clear she doesn't care a single bit about what he thinks. Her eyes blaze with pure madness as she declares, "This is exactly why we're here." Heinrich just watches in silence, but his mind is racing through every outcome like it's mapping the future. That pressure is so crushing, even battle-hardened imperial officials can't stop their hands from trembling. The emperor stays planted on his throne, face set like stone, silent, stern, and impossible to read. Heinrich can't help wondering Will the Emperor really let this go down? The aura of the magic gods is slamming down on everyone in that room, drowning out breath and pride. This isn't about words. It's a fight to see whose will breaks first. Ludo clenched his teeth and swore he'd already offered his submission. But Akashia's piercing stare makes it crystal clear. She's not buying it for a second. He realizes she's still convinced he's holding back, like he's playing her with some cold, calculated political move. She declares that this crushing pressure isn't a flaw at all. It's the real path the magic gods meant for them. Court officials shake in their boots because they realize, right here, none of their status means a thing. In front of beings like that, wealth and influence turn to dust, like they never mattered at all. To a god, every mortal is nothing but a tiny ant crawling on the dirt. Ludo tells her he finally gets it. Then he begs her to shut down this whole act once and for all. But she snaps back, saying he doesn't get a single thing. So yeah, he totally bombed that pop quiz. She drops the bomb that this whole meeting was set up just to drill him with 2 life-changing lessons. Ludo can only stare back, totally stunned, her whole lecture just leaving her speechless. Her very first lesson hits like a command. In this empire, a magic god has to carry themselves a certain way. She snaps that he's got no arrogance and 0 dignity, like he's way too kind for the job. She swears his usual polite act is the one thing he must not do. A goddess snaps back, I don't bow. Then she draws the line, they don't get polite respect, they get reverence. She warns him. His humility could crack the empire's power structure at its core. Heinrich listens. And then it hits him, slow but brutal, like reality finally settling on his face. Power doesn't ask permission, it demands respect. A magic god is a terrifying force that can wipe nations off the map, so far beyond mortal ranks and titles that no kingdom on earth can truly measure them. If a god plays meek, she warns, fools will clock it instantly and try to take advantage. And she's dead sure that misunderstanding is the fuse. One spark, and civil war explodes. She tells him, clear as thunder, that even royalty can't truly boss a god around. Heinrich finally gets it. Those magic gods aren't the real rulers. It's the guy sitting on the throne. The emperor might be nothing but a mortal, but his throne stands as the living symbol of that pact. A magic god never bows to anyone, except the one they personally choose to follow. She roars that this one, ironclad loyalty, is the secret that keeps the empire standing, unshakable and terrifyingly effective. She's the oldest loyal subject standing tall, the rock their nation is built on. Their power is sealed in sacred glory, respected as something divine, not some mere weapon for the battlefield. That throne isn't handed out. A magic god earns it over a lifetime, leaving behind a legacy of total, unquestionable power. Ludo's eyes flare wide as everything clicks, and he calls the system nothing short of brilliant. But when Akashia's first lesson finally ends, her mind snaps straight to the next one. She's the ancient political monster, this empire's real power behind the throne, ruling as the de facto master. Akashia drops the bombshell. Ludo is going to learn the proper way a magic god is supposed to exist here, starting now. Ludo fumbles over her own words, hunting for the perfect way to address a living legend. The flame god just smirks, like he's savoring every last drop of his misery. She says this is the perfect chance to crush any chaos before it even has a chance to start. Ludo gets totally blindsided when she jumps to announce the second, way more practical lesson. Once Heinrich steps in with them, she snaps that the whole continent's political world is about to flip on its head. A map bursts onto the scene and points straight at their biggest rival, the Romus theocracy, a nation whose power matches their own. Ludo insists that once a brand new magic god throws its weight behind the empire, the theocracy will have no choice but to move. Akashia leans in with a wicked grin. He's finally getting the game. The scales that used to stay level have now snapped, hard, toward the empire's side. Akashia snaps that the theocracy is about to lash out with a desperate, reckless play. She senses it. An enormous clash is unavoidable, a full-on war that's going to rattle the entire continent. And right at the center of all this chaos stands the theocracy's champion, Apostle Stark. Ludo leans in and listens like his life depends on it. And the truth hits. His face tightens as this new reality finally sinks in. Stark is the theocracy's ultimate weapon, so terrifying that they even treat him like he's on par with Akashia. He's a genius at turning regular guys into a full-on army of superhuman warriors. Honestly, that sounds about fair. Akashia tells him the moment war erupts, Ludo will get shipped straight in to take him on face-to-face. Ludo clenched his jaw, fully aware that his duty had him by the throat. Akashia smirks and declares, "That's exactly why this lesson is a must." Ludo's eyes go wide with pure horror as he finally understands what she means by that lesson. Without warning, Akashia erupts, unleashing a crushing flood of dark, oppressive power. The throne room drops into darkness as her power sucks the light right out of the air. Ludo's eyes go blurry, and the world around him dissolves as he's pulled straight into her domain. He realizes her power has totally rewritten everything around him. He's trapped, just one lone fighter, swallowed up by the sheer, unstoppable power of the flame god. But in the blink of an eye, Ludo slams his own magic into play to wipe out the attack. From the sidelines, Heinrich watches the whole exchange unfold with a calm, razor-sharp stare, like he's already measuring every move. A raging wall of water explodes forward, crashing into Akashia's suffocating aura like it's trying to drown the air itself. Akashia flashes a grin, because at least Ludo manages a real defense, and that's why he clears the first pop quiz. Ludo yells in total disbelief, feeling the crushing force of the magic god's divine authority slam down on him. Akashia smirks and leans in, saying this power is the heart of their magic. It's a power that shatters every rule and shoves the user's will straight into the real world. Ludo's face tightens as the truth hits him. This isn't just a fight, it's a full-on clash of minds and spirits. The flame god leans in and tells him, this authority only grows as far as his willpower dares to go. He gets it. He has to read every inch of her attack and rip a hole straight through it. It's pure ego taken to the edge, so arrogant it warps reality just to feed your own wants. She says it straight. This is why a magic god has to be arrogant, because their power doesn't just win, it sets the rules. Ludo's eyes bulge with pure horror as she realizes she's about to unleash real magic in the throne room. She hurls a barrage of fireballs at him, daring him to defend himself or get wrecked for good, and just like that, class is officially in session. Ludo can only stand there, helpless, as the reality of the attack crashes down on him. Their power detonates like a shockwave, blasting through the imperial palace itself. Even the stone walls felt like they were shaking, as the power inside erupted and slammed into the world. Elsewhere, the maids shriek in terror, but Princess Lieselot stands steady and soothes their panic with calm words. Her face turns grim, because she knows every detail of where this conversation is headed. She realizes the sheer weight of a magic god's authority hits like a storm, unstoppable and absolutely massive. Back in the throne room, Ludo snaps to it. Divine authority gets stronger when his focus stays razor-sharp. Akashia flashes a grin and warns him. If he hesitates, he'll be crushed before he even gets the chance to act. But Ludo gets it. Once he's inside her domain, nothing can stop him. The flame god's grin stretches wider and wider. He's finally cleared the test. Akashia lays it out. This is only the second stage, and suddenly what looked harmless turns into a real, direct threat. This isn't a tug-of-war anymore. It's a full-on slugfest of unleashed power inside her own domain. Ludo's eyes bulge with pure disbelief as she calls in wave after wave of attacks. He roars as the truth clicks. This manifested authority can't be wished away. You've got to fight it. She explains that every single fireball can flatten a castle, and it streaks faster than sound. Yeah, and right now, you're getting hit with a pop quiz. Ludo has to scramble for his life as the throne room floor blasts apart beneath him. The imperial court can only sit there, silent with pure terror, utterly helpless in a situation they never stood a chance to understand. Ludo erupts in rage, screaming that she's a fool for unleashing this power right in the palace. He digs in his heels, bracing to fight, because he's not just protecting himself, he's going to protect everyone in this room. Ludo rips open his magic and whips water tendrils across the court, striking out to shield the arena. His magic snaps the fireballs out of existence, killing them midair like they hit a wall. Acacia can't hide it. He's seriously impressed by how effortlessly he trapped her strike right inside her own territory. But Ludo roars back that this reckless display isn't impressive at all. She brushes off his worry and claims her attack is nothing more than a friendly hello, something he should have no trouble handling. Ludo jerks his finger at the terrified court and warns her she's seconds away from leveling the throne room. The flame god just flashes a smug, carefree grin, like she's having the time of her life. Her eyes go wild as she snaps that he's naive for believing this is all her power. From the sidelines, Heinrich leans in with a sly, calculating smirk, because he's not watching for nothing. He finally breaks the silence and demands to know, Acacia, is this what you really call guidance? The flame god locks eyes with him and flashes a taunting grin, daring him to do whatever he wants, like it's the greatest invitation of all. Heinrich's eyes squeeze shut with intent, and you can feel it. He's done playing nice. With one violent flick of his hand, he rips his power free. Acacia goads him, sneering that it's just not his style to stand there and do nothing while everything falls apart. A cold, chilling grin cracks across Heinrich's face as he declares his spell, Blizzard. An ice and snow storm comes roaring at the flame god. He just stands there and asks, calm as ever, what he's going to do next. Ludo shrieks a warning at Heinrich, don't you dare underestimate me. But Acacia's grin snaps into something unhinged, and she loudly praises his raw, unrefined power. Heinrich smirks back, and you can tell this is finally getting good. The blizzard surges harder and harder, unleashing a freezing torrent of absolute zero straight at the Empire's heart. For the first time, Acacia gets blindsided, and the raw punch of his magic shoves him backward. And right inside the chaos of the storm, one razor-sharp shard of ice rockets straight ahead. Acacia's eyes bulge with shock as he spots the attack for what it is, an icy needle shot straight at him. Heinrich smiled and spun the blizzard lie, calling it a mere trick to mask the real power he was dying to unleash. That one unstoppable needle, he swears it's the real killing blow. In the blink of an eye, the needle locks on and drives straight through the flame god's forehead. Ludo just gapes. His brain totally breaks, refusing to even make sense of what he's witnessed. Acacia freezes solid for a heartbeat, an icy blade jammed straight into her skull. Her body suddenly goes limp, and Ludo's mind explodes with panic. Did he just kill her? Seated on the throne, the Emperor stares at everything unfolding before him, looking like this whole spectacle is mildly annoying. Heinrich watches her with icy eyes and tells her, point blank, that he warned her he wouldn't pull any punches. But Ludo realizes, with a jolt, that any normal person would have been wiped out by that one attack alone. He claims that a magic god's body is soaked through with their own unshakable will. This unusual body works like a special key. Magic hits them in wild, unbelievable ways. He stares straight at the flame god, breath held, demanding to know if his theory is finally right. Acacia's eyes light up. She can't help asking if he's already cracked the secret to strengthening his own body. Ludo's eyes shot wide. His hunch nailed it right on the money. He admits it. Since he'd never met another magic god, his whole theory was just that. Acacia's smug grin seals the truth in place, and that can only mean one thing. Her immortal body can only be damaged for real when a magic god unleashes their full power. Ludo only has one reaction when it hits her. She sweats, because she finally understands that immortality doesn't mean can't die. It means good luck trying. Court officials shrink in fear, their minds screaming as a death match between gods unfolds right in front of them. When magic gods clash in an all-out brawl, it's not about winning, it's a fight for survival. One massive showdown would level nations to dust and wipe out life across the whole continent. Even Acacia's legendary showdown with Apostle Stark never turned into a real, full-blown fight. A real death match would have exposed the truth fast, proving her immortality wasn't just a fancy name. Heinrich's patience snapped as this ridiculous, over-the-top spectacle kept dragging on. But Acacia slams the moment into action and declares it's time to move on to the next phase of the lesson. Ludo's eyes blow wide with pure terror as he realizes this lesson isn't even close to done. Out of nowhere, she whips a vicious kick straight for his head, So much for that magical theory. The impact slammed into him with ruthless force, and he staggered back like his whole world just cracked. Ludo gets launched into the air and slams into the far wall of the throne room with a brutal crash. The court officials can only stand there in pure horror, forced to witness the brutal violence unfolding right in front of them. Akashia's rage doesn't just fade, it snaps into real, wide-eyed shock. Ice clamps her leg tight, and her strike shatters it clean apart. She flashes a grin, clearly entertained by this wild snap into full-on physical combat. But Ludo comes out completely unscathed, utterly stunned that his own resilience held strong. Akashia smirks, admits she misjudged him, and demands to know what sneaky trick he's hiding. From the sidelines, Heinrich barks, "If you're really teaching, then explain your power now." Ludo spills his secret. He's frozen his own body in time, locking every part of himself so it can never change again. He even froze his coordinates, trapping himself in space, so the Emperor's roar of laughter hits the air, pure joy on his face. Akashia bursts into laughter, utterly amazed that Ludo has somehow secured his own form of immortality. Even Heinrich freezes in shock, staring in awe at just how wildly creative Ludo's power is. Akashia snaps her hands together, cutting the theory lesson short. She stands right across from Ludo and fires off, ready to pick up where we left off in our little spar. The ice magic god and the flame god square up. This is it. The real clash is about to ignite. Akashia stomps forward and launches at an impossible speed, like the laws of the world can't keep up. She rockets forward like a human bullet, and her close-quarters combat tears through the air, leaving only dust and silence in its wake. The flame god vanishes for a heartbeat, then slams in with a brutal, fiery beatdown. So much for a clean, magical duel. But Ludo stays ice-calm, eyes locked on her every move with razor-sharp focus. He snaps his arm up to block the kick, every impact screaming that this one is the last. Ludo roars that if he didn't have his immutability, her bare-handed strike would have ended him on the spot. Akashia flashes a bright, fake smile and delivers an apology that's as hollow as it gets. She tells him it's all training, because he's about to face the theocracy's champion, Apostle Stark. Ludo finally clocks it. Stark isn't just a commander, he's a full-on frontline monster, tearing things up with his own hands. Akashia confirms it. Stark's own fighting strength is the real, far bigger threat. She showcases his style, an unstoppable beatdown, launched by a self-enhanced warrior who won't let up. She becomes a streak of lightning, and the floor starts cracking from the sheer fury of her speed. Stark can supercharge a whole team and crush enemies himself, an absolutely terrifying combo. Ludo's face tightens, and hot steam blasts upward as he braces for the next brutal wave. He tightens his fist and suddenly understands the real nightmare, going up against a god-tier brawler. Ludo leans in and listens like his life depends on it, and one drop of sweat shouts the truth he tries to hide. Akashia admits it straight up. When it comes to raw power and reach, Ludo is actually the stronger one. But she cackles, saying her flames are the only reason she's still alive, because without them, she would have been dead long ago. She admits she couldn't even stand there and eat one full-power hit from him. No freebies, not for her. Heinrich grinned, wondering if the continent would have survived at all if they'd ever truly gone to war. But Akashia's lesson isn't done, because once Ludo gets boxed in, his defense won't matter a bit. It's like chess. Once he gets put in check, he has one move to flip the entire board. She slams her foot down, and the earth splits open from the impact of her next big demonstration. She tells him bluntly, "Go on, dodge the strikes and swing that magic around. You're just postponing the inevitable." He can't just hang on. He has to find a way to win, and this lesson is getting brutal fast. Akashia yanks his own face and bluntly declares that close-quarter combat just isn't his thing. Ludo is completely thrown off by how aggressively and personally her teacher lays into her. She lays it out with simple logic. A fist is just a fist, but once it's a god's fist, it turns into a weapon. Ludo steals his nerves, bracing for whatever brutal lesson hits him next. Akashia leans in and asks, "Are you annoyed?" and reminds him about that insanely flashy duel he had with Klaus. She tells him that show was absolutely necessary, and that only his magic could make it happen. Heinrich dryly size-ups Ludo's close-quarters combat and says it's barely even at a soldier's level. Yeah, even the peanut gallery has already chimed in. Ludo still remembers the moment he crushed the war dragon with one single, decisive magical blow. But when a magic god flexes its authority, those simple tricks get crushed. So he has to smash through that weakness right now. The air crackles with heat as he steps forward to take the flame god's next lesson straight in the face. Ludo's eyes snap wide as a realization hits him like a bolt of lightning. He hammers his fist into the floor, pushing his power to the edge and daring it to break. Acacia is totally thrown off. Her face freezes in real, jaw-dropping shock. He suddenly kicked it into overdrive, ripping through the gap with a rush of brand-new speed. Flame God caught off guard. One tiny trickle of blood spills as shock flashes across her face, and it hits hard. This student is learning fast, but she snaps back to her feet instantly, stomping forward to unleash a brutal counterattack. Once again, she launches forward like a human bullet, so fast you can't even track her with your eyes. The flame god roars and hammers out another relentless storm of brutal physical strikes. From the sidelines, Heinrich leans in, eyes locked on everything with a razor-sharp, analytical stare. Ludo slams into her kick. Each hit lands like a death sentence, built to end the fight for good. Ludo roars that if he didn't have that immutability, her bare-handed strike would have straight up ended him. Acacia flashes a bright, cheerful apology, purely fake, like a grin with a knife behind it. She tells him this is all training, because next up, he's going to face the theocracy's champion, Apostle Stark. Ludo throws it back in disbelief, convinced Stark's power is nothing but a boost to his army. But Acacia tells everyone, sure, my army can strike back, but Stark by himself is the real nightmare. He's a monster who keeps leveling up non-stop, then barrels straight into the fight like he's unstoppable. Honestly, it sounds almost fair. Her foot slams into the stone with a gritty grind, proving just how godlike her strength really is. Stark doesn't just inspire the masses. He backs it up with pure, personal power too. Ludo's face tightens as the truth about his next opponent finally hits him. He tightens his fist, and suddenly the real nightmare hits him, going toe-to-toe with a god-tier brawler. Ludo locks in with total focus, and you can practically see the lesson's pressure crushing down on him. Acacia keeps running her analysis, and admits it. Ludo's raw offensive power straight up overwhelms her. She laughs it off and swears her immortality is the whole reason she's made it this far. She even admits it. If he lands a full-powered strike, it'll hurt both of them, and that's a real stalemate. From the sidelines, Heinrich can't stop thinking that if a real brawl ever broke out between them, it could have wiped him clean off the map. But Acacia slams back to the real issue. Fighting up close and only playing defense is a surefire way to lose. She drags a chessboard onto the table and tells him straight up, when you're trapped in the corner, you need a move that can flip the whole game. With a vicious stomp, she's set to show you the next piece of her brutal lesson. She tells him straight up, if he just keeps dodging Stark's attacks, he's walking into certain defeat. Ludo tilted his gaze to the towering flame god, instantly dwarfed by her terrifying presence and the crushing weight of every word she threw at him. Acacia snatches his own face and blurts out that close-quarters fight style just isn't his strong suit. The flame god pauses mid-reaction, weighing his next move as her expression stays completely unreadable. She breaks it down in seconds. One fist is just a fist, until a god winds up and hurls it at you. Ludo snaps into a fighting stance, and her brutal training forges steel in his resolve. She smirks at him, asks straight up if he's annoyed, then brings up his flashy duel with Klaus like it's the funniest thing ever. Ludo swore it was the only move that could work, something he could pull off only with magic. Heinrich dryly points out that Ludo's close-quarters combat skills barely measure up to a real soldier's. He remembers his duel with Klaus. One blast of crushing magic was all it took to seal the win. But when it's another magic god across from him, that power crumbles, and he has to smash that weakness right now. A surge of energy ripples through the air as Ludo braces himself for what's next. Ludo squints hard, and in the chaos of battle, a brand new strategy snaps into place. He slams into her next kick head-on, and the floor explodes from the impact. But this time, Akashia is the one frozen in shock by his defense. Now he's lightning fast. His counterattack slams into the flame god and catches him totally off guard. A thin trickle of blood spills out of her shock. Yep, the student finally landed his first real hit. They slam into each other again. Pure chaos and raw destructive force flying in every blur. Ludo realizes there's no way to slow her down, so he pushes himself, sprinting past his limits to keep up. Akashia's eyes flash with pure panic, because he's already plotting how to break out of this checkmate. He swings back and lands a brutal strike, right on the flame god's head. Her body explodes on impact and she's left totally stunned. So yeah, looks like class is officially over. But then Ludo drops his real trump card, one perfect sphere of pure, condensed magic. He slams it down, and the throne room erupts as a towering pillar of light swallows everything in its path. Akashia's grin spreads wider and wider. She dares him to show her what he's really capable of. Ludo stands at the eye of the chaos, and now his power is roaring at full blast. The flame god leans in, and her smile fades into real, burning curiosity. A ribbon of pure light condenses, and a serpent made of living water starts to take shape. Akashia's eyes lock in, and in that instant he realizes this isn't some act. It's his real divine authority. Now he's not just defending anymore. He's gearing up to unleash the monster he's been building. She tells him, "This power is exactly what you'll need to take on the theocracy's apostle, Stark." Her sweet smile snaps into something predatory, and that's when the real lesson is about to hit. Two gods explode into a roar, their wills crashing together as a final, wordless challenge hangs in the air. In the blink of an eye, their powers explode outward, rattling the palace to its core. The massive water serpent snaps into action, coiling around the flame god in a single blazing flash. Akashia gets totally blindsided, swept up in a relentless storm of impact. The imperial court can only gape in stunned awe, watching a battle that feels impossible for mortals to even understand. Ludo thrusts out his hand, eyes locked in total focus as he barks commands to the watery prison. He traps her inside a flawless, watertight sphere. Just liquid walls, no door, no way out. Ludo breaks down his trick. He traps the air in a prison, and that dead, stagnant breath turns the liquid completely indestructible. Akashia slams into the barrier with all her strength, but it won't budge an inch. From inside the prison, she sneers at his perfect trap, calling it way too clueless, and makes it clear he's got a lot more to learn. The Emperor's eyes shoot wide as he finally clocks Ludo's perfect prison has one deadly flaw. Akashia's voice booms from inside, and that one phrase slams the truth into place, confirming every fear he had. She tells you straight up, you can't snuff a flame with water. She'll just blast it apart and burn it all away. The sphere detonates into a blast of steam, and Ludo gets launched like a rag doll from the shockwave. Ludo's eyes bulge with pure horror. Turns out his ultimate technique was nothing more than a tiny inconvenience. But before anyone can blink, he snaps back. Fresh power surges into his palm, building like a storm. Now it's Akashia who gets hit with the shock of an unstoppable, unbreakable will. He bursts forward with a blinding flash, an all-or-nothing gamble, desperate enough to risk everything. The two magic gods are poised and glowing. This is it. The final phase of the lesson is about to explode into action, and the imperial court can only stand there, wide-eyed and frozen. As the battle spirals out of control, the Emperor can only stare. One bead of sweat spills out, exposing the sheer shock in him. A blinding light detonates from Ludo's palm, his last, ruthless gambit. Akashia snaps out of his sudden halt, staring like, "What are you even trying to pull off here?" He flat out says, "I don't know Stark, and I won't just turn into the monster she's demanding." But he can conjure a faint opening, sparked by pure, wild instinct. He stares down his own bluff, and a calm, lethal confidence settles in like it owns the room. Akashia snaps out his cheekiness and challenges his nerve, right there on the spot. A slow, impressed smile blooms on her face. Guess the kid just aced the final exam. When the steam finally peels away, the brutal energy from their clash starts to fade for good. Steam roars out of the windows, the only clue that a divine storm is raging inside. The throne room is battered and scarred, yet still standing, like proof that the god held back. Akashia smirks and admits her fireballs could have flattened the castle, then grins as she declares she gets to pick who gets burned. Even the Emperor has to admit it. This ordeal rattled him so hard he was left shaking in pure terror. Ludo just keeps glaring, because it finally clicks. Everything that almost killed him was nothing but a controlled experiment. He's left totally speechless by the sheer audacity of it all. Akashia snaps at the court, reminding them Ludo was only trying to save their sorry hides. The Emperor strains to put into words the crushing terror of a magic god's aura. Ludo scoffs and shoots out a sarcastic grin. So, are there any cute people here who need me to coddle them? Imperial officials just freeze in stunned silence, fully roasted to a crisp. He snaps at them to get a grip, then insists they're totally not cute. Because hey, that's one brutal way to slam the lid on a training session. Akashia leans in and tells you, a magic god's battle is a rare miracle, worth more than you can imagine. She needed to test just how strong he really was before the theocracy struck, to see exactly what he'd do when someone shoved him past his breaking point. Ludo grumbles under his breath when he realizes they've totally seen through his polite act. Akashia just bursts into laughter, straight up admitting she'd been clocking him as a little brat from the start. She whips around to the Emperor and urges him to reward Ludo for everything he's done. Ludo can only gawk in total disbelief, utterly thrown off by this sudden twist in the atmosphere. The Emperor nods and tells Ludo to name his price for that priceless lesson. But our boy is totally flustered, blurting out that he doesn't even have real desires. Akashia chews him out, demanding to know if he's got zero hunger for status or power. Then he shuts her down with a sharp, "Be quiet." Ludo insists that his title alone is all the reward he needs. Akashia looks irritated that he won't chase bigger goals, but the Emperor hears his logic and nods like it all makes perfect sense. Ludo swears he wants nothing big. He just begs them to take his feelings seriously. Akashia leans in on him, demanding, "Are you really happy with a wish that tiny?" But the Emperor flashes a smug grin and basically dares him to throw out his price. Ludo finally breaks down and admits it. There's only one thing he truly wants. He demands a massive break, paid vacation, until his power is truly needed, just like a god clocking in for time off. That night in a calm hush, 2 glasses of wine lift up for a quiet toast. The Emperor sits down with Heinrich, staring into the distance as he realizes how they pulled a prince out of the shadows and crushed the hero rebels. Heinrich flashes a smug smirk and asks if the Emperor doesn't find this new setup downright delightful. Heinrich locks eyes with the Emperor and speaks straight to him, pure, casual confidence blazing in his gaze. The Emperor leans in and listens, and pure satisfaction spreads across his face like he just got exactly what he wanted. He can't help but realize it. Now that Heinrich's status has changed, these guys are no longer just around him. They're his direct subordinates. The Emperor sinks into thought, stunned by just how wild and unpredictable life really is. Heinrich finally admits this whole ride has been brutal, and now he's got to muscle through the new formalities. He admits it feels weird, going all formal over drinks, but he gets why it has to be done. With a shaky exhale, he finally feels that crushing weight on his shoulders lift off for real. The Emperor looked genuinely shocked, clocking that Heinrich's got this stubborn sense of duty. And the Emperor realizes he was hoping for a lot more arrogance than that. He leaned in and grilled the young prince. What does he really believe the Lord is, considering the kid's already got a short life? Heinrich leans in and admits that from the very start, he's had to burn every last bit of his brain just to stay alive. Heinrich sprawls on the couch, jaw tight, replaying the role the Empire has forced him to wear. He smirks and admits, yeah, if he's a brat, then he's the kind that's brutally effective. The Emperor blurts out, wondering if the young prince has had too much to drink. But he's stunned by this rare honesty, and it hits him fast. Don't get too comfortable. Heinrich freezes for a split second, eyes sharp with thought, like he's about to make the next move. He breaks it down. Once you've got a magic god in you, you're no longer human, and the alcohol won't do a thing. The Emperor leans in and locks eyes on the boy, and you can tell he's hiding more than anyone suspects. A diagram lays bare the truth. because a god's body bends past mortal rules, shrugging off age, poison, and disease like they're nothing. Heinrich finally spills his own secret. He's been freezing himself in time, trapping his body in eternal youth with his power. Seriously, this is the anti-aging cream from hell. He tells you straight up. Sure, he can't get drunk, but he's still finding joy in the plain, simple pleasure of the moment. The emperor can't help but gush about how perfectly convenient Heinrich's constitution is. He tells him straight up, there's no point buttering up a man like him. All he wants is a fair, honest judgment. Heinrich finally admits it's just him venting. But he never, ever thought his anger would end up blasting him onto a stage this massive. But his eyes squeeze shut with fury, because he knows he just crossed a line that can never be erased. He's finally staring them in the face, and now he gets it. The Empire's top brass isn't just cruel, it's a nest of monsters. He whips his thoughts back to the throne room, Emperor Friedrich standing there with the flame god, Acacia, and right behind them loomed the real heavy hitters, the unnamed officials pulling the strings and steering the whole nation. At the very top stands the emperor, untouchable, unshakable, and dripping with the dignity only a true ruler can command. Even with the magic gods crushing aura bearing down on them, the court didn't so much as blink. Seriously, that's one tough crowd. The emperor's stare felt like it could pierce anything, straight into your very soul. He can't stop thinking about the flame god, Acacia, the ancient power standing right beside the emperor. A mysterious figure has pledged their loyalty to the empire, yet nobody can figure out the real reason why. But under that smile lurks a ruthless mastermind, an ancient guardian deity chained to the fate of the whole nation. She's the real power behind the throne, an unstoppable weapon that never even needs to be pulled. A magic god with experience that crushes yours, so powerful he tears reality apart like it's nothing. He realizes her past is off limits, one forbidden subject he knows he must never, ever touch. He knows there's no way he can dodge, outsmart, or outfight a monster like her. Staying in this den of vipers only means one thing: disaster, right around the corner, and he's realizing the welcome basket definitely didn't come with a survival guide. The emperor's voice slices right through his thoughts, demanding to know what's wrong. Heinrich lets out a cold scoff, basically saying, "You can't trust a single soul in that court." He straight up says he wants nothing, absolutely nothing, to do with any of them. He tells it like a warning. Politics is a den of monsters, and the empire is sitting right at the top. And yeah, the emperor might have promised him a vacation, but he can already feel those creatures aren't about to let him breathe easy. They're going to shove him to the edge, slipping political time bombs into the shadows that explode the moment he lets his guard down. It's a strategy showdown where you have to read the board like it's fate, and land your move with fearless, razor-precise timing. But then he realizes this magic god isn't just another monster. It's something that towers over humanity. He realizes the only way to beat them is to act like a fool and dodge every last one of their schemes. The emperor is utterly stunned. This simple plan hits harder than anyone expected. Heinrich digs in his heels and swears he's fighting for his life, just to snag a vacation. And honestly, it's the kind of noble cause that sounds insane but hits hard. He just wants to breathe for a second, be human. No world-saving pressure crushing his shoulders. The emperor is left speechless by Heinrich's explosive, heart-on-the-sleeve declaration. Heinrich tells everyone this quiet, peaceful moment is something he's only ever dared to dream about. He stares at his scarred hands, bearing the brutal proof of a lifetime he fought just to stay alive. But out on the empire's far-off border, a brand new war has already erupted. A lone commander stares into the chaos, wondering how many of his men are already gone. The battlefield rages like a furnace, fire, explosions, and pure brutality with zero mercy in sight. On the front lines, soldiers scramble to save their lives as chaos crashes down all around them. From the edge of the trees, they spot their enemy, just standing there, silent and terrifying, like doom holding its breath. The commander's eyes sharpen, like he can already see the nightmare waiting for him. An impossibly massive army looms in front of them, an endless wave of steel and death. So much for that vacation. Two trembling hands shoot out in panic, clawing for help as the storm bears down. A brutal blast detonates across the battlefield, and it rips through the air so hard it literally devours soldiers whole. In the middle of the chaos, a young dark-haired soldier bares his teeth, his face splashed with blood. He charges shoulder to shoulder with his blonde comrade, their blades swinging like a last-ditch wall against the relentless tide. The enemy's non-stop magical onslaught rips the earth apart itself. The young soldier's eyes snap wide open, and pure terror from the front lines pours straight into his gaze. His comrade bellows with raging fury, snarling for him to stay out of the path of that blade. But the dark-haired youth snaps into command, barking orders for his men to create a diversion. So yeah, someone's gotta be the bait. Blood splattered across his face as he roared the command to charge straight into the jaws of death. The blonde soldier shuts his eyes tight, swallowing the brutal truth of what's really coming for them. The blonde commander sits alone in silence, crushed so hard by his losses it feels like gravity is killing him. He can still see his friends' faces, men he toasted with, now swallowed by time, gone forever. Later, he settles in beside the dark-haired youth, and for once, they share a quiet moment where the world goes still. He makes it crystal clear. The war didn't spring up out of nowhere. The politicians who lit the fuse are the ones truly guilty. He insists that his unit and the prince they chased are the real victims and they deserve all the credit. They were the ones who ripped the war apart, crushing their enemy until they finally broke and surrendered. The young soldier leans in, eyes locked, and demands to know if this is their cue to ditch the old cause. The commander shuts his eyes, and in that quiet moment, he accepts this new reality for what it is. The young fighter sits alone, jaw clenched and thoughts hammering as he weighs his next move, and he knows it's finally time to strike for his comrades. Above them, the sky sprawls like a question mark, just as unclear as the future they're about to crash into. The story snaps to a breathtaking grand city. Everything looks calm, shining, and packed with prosperity. Its streets are buzzing with life, a wild contrast to the border's battlefield scars. Citizens stroll along the cobblestone paths, and their days stay blissfully untouched by the fresh chaos of war. The city square roars with bodies, and every step through that crowd screams one thing: this empire's stability is rock solid. And right there, weaving through the chaos, is that dark-haired kid fresh from the front lines. He grins and says he always knew the capital would be just like this. He soaks in the non-stop streets, soaking up every ounce of the nation's pulse as he talks about how alive it all feels. But just as he's lost in quiet thoughts, a voice he knows all too well snaps him out of it. The blonde commander barrels through the crowd, shouting, "Young master," like it's breaking news. Yeah, that's a twist I didn't see coming. He snaps at the kid for ditching everyone and wandering off alone, and you can practically feel the frustration pouring off him. The kid from the front line snaps, "Where is Heinrich? He's late." They're deep undercover, playing the foreign merchant's son, while their attendant follows every move like a perfect shadow. Heinrich scoffs and says their rural homeland can't even hold a candle to the capital's jaw-dropping grandeur. Then he leans in and fires a question at his young master. What's their official schedule for the day? The youth snorts, then mocks him as a total blockhead just because he's locked in on work. He lets out a heavy sigh, utterly fed up with his subordinate's stuffy, suffocating attitude. Then it hits him. He grins and declares he'll finally teach Heinrich how to have real fun. Heinrich just shrugs and agrees, then urges them to cut toward the city's livelier streets. Elsewhere, a noble-looking man and a dark-haired woman gallop across the plains, cutting through the open land like they own it. Back in the city, Heinrich whips out a skewer of street food for his young master like, "Lesson 1 begins now." Heinrich tells everyone those street vendors swore this skewer is a true local delicacy. He insists that he should have been the one to go grab it, because that's exactly what his role as the attendant is for. The kid just smirks and needles him, cracking jokes because this grown-up is so uptight about their ridiculously simple cover story. He totally shrugs off the formal lecture and dives right into the offered food with a big bite. He couldn't believe it, but he straight up admits the street food is actually damn good. Now that the first lesson is nailed and the fun is over, they decide it's time to move on. But as they move, A thief shoots forward and snatches the youth's pouch. The young master snaps the pickpocket in his grip, then waves him off like he's nothing more than a pathetic little criminal. Suddenly, a hulking guy bursts into a furious shout, acting like someone just bumped into him. He and his accomplice try to cow the kid with threats, blaming him for an injury. But yeah, they just picked the wrong targets. Two thugs go dead still, their bravado evaporating in the blink of an eye. Their leader stammers out the words, horrified as he finally realizes he's just made a catastrophic mistake. A cold sweat explodes across their skin as they lock eyes with the victims they're hunting. The kid stays stone calm and tells them to vanish. Then they scatter in pure terror. But then, right in the middle of everything, an explosive scream rips through the crowd and yanks his attention. Those same thugs spotted a softer target, and he snaps at Heinrich to step in and stop it. Heinrich steps in like the hero, and the rescued woman pours out heartfelt thanks for him. Just another day in the life of an undercover commander. Once that small chaos was shut down, the day rolled right back into motion. Heinrich can't stop gushing about how wildly alive their little trip has been so far. The young guy just smirks and basically claims this whole run-in is the perfect way to waste a little time. The young master whips his head around and demands answers from Heinrich. Where exactly did they land? He clocked that the streets were packed with an oddly high number of well-dressed young people. The streets packed with fancy shops, and he catches stray bits of technical jargon floating through the air. At this crossroads, he finally clicks every piece into place like it all makes perfect sense. They finally pulled up to the legendary Magic Academy. So much for a low-key vacation. The youth's face tightens, and suddenly the cold academic vibe makes perfect sense. Heinrich can't stop staring. His master's sudden flash of insight is downright fascinating. But then the kid suddenly snatches his face, and it hits him like a slap out of nowhere. He leans in and reminds his attendant, "Hey, this is our break. We're supposed to be off right now." Heinrich can only choke back tears as his master rips into him for taking everything so damn seriously. He tilts his head back at the Grand Academy, and a spark of curiosity ignites in his eyes. But he whips around and tells Heinrich, "Let's go," before that work bug sinks its teeth in. Heinrich looks genuinely shocked, then blurts out, "So you really don't care about magic at all?" The kid admits it'd be a straight-up lie to pretend he's not dying to get his hands on the Empire's advanced magic. The Empire's sorcery didn't just appear out of thin air. It was forged by digging into smaller communities, old magic, then refining it until it became something far more terrifying. He tells them his power isn't some wild anomaly. It's the raw, basic magic of his homeland. It's a slice of knowledge the Empire's researchers haven't even touched yet. And now, right in front of him, stands a place built to hold all that knowledge. But he swats the idea away. No way he's letting anyone rope him into more work on his vacation. Even a prodigy deserves a day off. Heinrich just stares, totally thrown off, because he can't figure out what his master is trying to pull. The youth finally gets it. His own magic is the perfect prize, the ultimate thing they've been dying to study. He knows that the second he shows so much as a tiny flicker of interest in their sorcery, they were practically guaranteed to drag him into their studies and recruit him on the spot. Heinrich sits there thinking they're probably going to demand he copy the power of a magic god. The youth remembers how every detail about the flame god Acacia has already been studied inside and out. He whips around to Heinrich and demands to know what he's heard about the real price of magic. Heinrich nods and flat out confirms he gets the core principles. He explains that magic taps into mana, and then briefly rewrites the world's rules like it's nothing. The kid nods along, and even if it feels weird and unexplained, it turns out to be a real, undeniable physical thing. But he realizes something terrifying. Regular magic follows rules, while a magic god's power breaks every single one. He breaks it down so you can actually feel it. Regular magic is just math, but a god's magic is wild. It writes the answer on its own. The youth looms in the shadows of his own overwhelming power, declaring that this is what a magic god truly is. He says trying to copy it as a mortal is like a kid copying an adult, watching the moves, but never truly getting what it really means. Heinrich nods along and says the brutal truth. Human bodies and magic just can't stretch that far, not even close. The youth stares forward, admitting he gets his own power, so well that he knows, deep down, it's straight-up absurd. He's fully aware the Empire's real goal is to uncover a power just like the one he already has. He peers over the roaring city streets, sensing how everyone's holding their breath for the new magic god to finally team up and move the world. The mere thought of it sucks the joy right out of his whole day. He shuts that idea down instantly, saying he wants zero to do with that mess. So yeah, the job offer gets turned down. With that, he whips around to go and tells Heinrich, "Our sightseeing tour's moving on, keep up." Heinrich just drops into a bow and accepts his master's verdict without a fight. With the capital tour finally over, the two break away from the city and stride straight toward the horizon. The tale flips on a dime, yanking them out of vacation bliss and throwing them headfirst into the grim, cutthroat world of politics. We burst into the Rand Kingdom and roll up to a towering castle, sitting where the old Margravate of Rays used to be. Inside, two rival delegations square off to hammer out the official end of the war. An imperial representative beams like a sunrise, practically giddy that peace is finally within arm's reach. And honestly, that smile looks way too real to doubt. He steps up and formally calls for the armistice talks, standing there tight with military commanders on both sides. The leaders of the Rand Kingdom can only give a cold, grim nod. No words, just silence. Zone steps forward and introduces himself as the Empire's diplomat, and the commander leading the invasion, none other than Klaus himself, front and center. An eye-patched officer strides in, introduces herself as Lambert, Klaus's adjutant, like she's got orders that can't wait. Across from them, the defeated Crown Prince Edward of the Rand Kingdom slumps in defeat, staring them down. And right beside him, the grim-faced king sprinted too, closing in on the eighth. Their flustered prime minister, Harry Org, stammers and tries to get words out. The prince cuts him off mid-sentence, snapping that introductions are pointless, because they already know exactly who they are. But what they see hits the whole delegation like a wall, sweat breaks out, and they can't believe their eyes. Klaus and his adjutant stand there like they own the moment, pure, unshakable confidence radiating off them. The King of Rand flashes a predator's grin, pressing Zone on whether he's truly got what it takes. Zone shrugs off the praise, insisting Klaus is the real military boss here, then smirks like, "Nothing to see. I'm just the lowly civil servant." He insists it's all just a lucky pick, that he got shoved into the role as a pawn, like it was convenient for someone else's game. The King of Rand and his prime minister stare in disbelief, totally rocked by Zone's casually self-deprecating remark. The prince's fist snaps shut, knuckles turning bone-white as they grind into the polished tabletop. The prime minister breaks into a cold sweat, finally grasping just how brutal the humiliation is that they're being forced to endure. They're dragged to a minor noble's mansion and forced to bargain for their kingdom's fate, right there on land they've already occupied. The imperial delegation slumps there like they've got nothing better to do, leaving the defeated royals with zero room to save face. And their lead negotiator, he struts in, smug as ever, and calls himself nothing more than a mere bit player. The king's glare sharpens into a weapon, his royal pride pushed past every breaking point. Zone grins and blurts out that it's time to hammer out the treaty terms he's already laid out. The king snatches the document, and his eyes blow wide as he stares at the unbelievable truth written there. This isn't a treaty. It's a brutal tally of what's been taken, and the Empire's first move is downright chilling. The Prime Minister's hands shake as he realizes those terms will strangle their whole nation. The King of Rand erupts in protest, shouting that their demands are utterly merciless. But Zone's icy stare never flinches as he presses. "So what part of you is so heartless?" The king can only lock eyes and stare back. His royal authority is totally shattered. Zone tells them to be thankful they get to exist at all, because this is the only shot they'll ever get. The prime minister slams his fist on the table, snapping that they can't even rule while the situation is like this. Zone's reflection smirked right back and said, cold as ice, "That's your mess, not mine. And yeah, you can't really argue with that logic." Then he challenges the king's right to rule, twisting the blade even deeper. With nothing left but pride and pain, the king can only clench his teeth, because his own defeat has him completely trapped. Zone lands the final strike hard, and the Empire refuses to back down, so their no just sparks yet another invasion. Zone's eyes turn ice cold as he checks their terms, and yeah, they're totally unreasonable on purpose. The King of Rand explodes in rage, screaming over the Empire's shocking, unprovoked, brutal invasion. But Zone sees it as destiny, like a lion tearing into its prey. He smirks and tells him that tossing a disposable pawn like himself is the whole point of the humiliation. The king can only sit there in terror as Zone lays out the choice: submit and bow, or face straight up hell. His royal pride collapses in an instant, and his face twists with helpless, bottomless fury. Meanwhile, Klaus and his adjutant just keep their eyes on the chaos, totally unshaken as the drama rages around them. The king whips around to Prince Edward and presses him, demanding answers for his sudden, stubborn silence. The prince finally snaps. He barks that they should just burn his kingdom down instead of playing along with this humiliation, like someone's having the worst day imaginable at the office. But Clausen keeps his own cool, treating his outburst like it was just the usual futile question people always ask. Prince Edward nods and says the Empire has zero to win from any truce. He demands to know why they'd even waste time with this humiliating little show. Zone's face turns ice cold as he finally spills the truth. Someone out there laid down a condition. The prince freezes in shock, staring into the void like, who on earth dares to command this empire's terms? The king and his prime minister are completely stunned by this shocking revelation that drops out of nowhere. Zahn told him it was a magic god they already knew, one who used his authority to slam the invasion to a stop. The King of Rand can barely get the words out, only stammers spill, as the magic god's echo haunts the silent room. Zone snaps his focus to the king, laying out how a son's mask is really just a lie, and how parents still have to carry their duty. The story snaps into a flashback. There's a young boy staring back with that same stubborn, determined look. The king stares down at the boy, and in that quiet look, you can feel history snapping into place, along with the terrifying power he's just about to unleash. The King of Rand is trapped in the past, scrabbling to remember the face of the son everyone forgot. He remembers a boy launching himself off the castle walls, this strange, far-off kid who feels like a ghost from another life. Prince Edward can't let it go. He stares at the impossible truth and demands answers. The magic god is his brother. The king's mind is racing. Besides Edward, there's another son, and deep down, he knows it can't be him. He can still see that quiet boy, always alone on the ramparts, staring out at the world like he was drinking in every secret. He'd already written off that kid as completely useless, like the kind of review that screams, "Do not hire again." That boy's stoic, unreadable look won't leave his head. It keeps haunting him. Zone finally calls it out. The impossible is real, because Ludo, the forgotten son, is now officially a magic god. The king's face twists into pure terror as the crushing weight of his mistake finally comes crashing down on him. Prince Edward stands there, stunned to his core, because the fate of their entire kingdom now hinges on the brother they shoved aside. Rand's king can do nothing but stare. His world implodes the moment that terrible news hits. Prince Edward shuts his eyes tight, and the brutal truth of their mistake crashes down on him. Zone insists it wasn't incompetence at all. It was a move so obvious, they were just too blind to notice. He admits the whole negotiation was set up purely because Ludo demanded it. The king's face snaps from shock to raw, powerless fury. The prime minister can't take it in. He blurts it out in stutters, swearing Ludo just can't be a magic god. He can't shake the feeling the empire's cooking up yet another brutal scam. But Zone points straight at the truce and says it's the final, undeniable proof that Ludo's power runs the whole world. He tells you a magic god is a wild card, one that could flip the whole world on its head, like finally getting dealt the perfect hand. And in their blinding arrogance, they threw away their biggest trump card without even realizing it. Klaus keeps staring straight ahead, like his calm eyes are daring the impossible truth to be real. But Prince Edward's eyes bulged with disbelief, and horror crept in like a nightmare. Klaus lays it out. Ludo struck a deal with the Empire to save his homeland. He threw himself in as a captive, swearing he'd trade his life to save the kingdom. And when the Empire found itself staring down a magic god, it had no choice, so it swallowed his terms and agreed. Zone coldly shuts it down, declaring the Rand Kingdom has zero other choices left. The king's hand shakes uncontrollably as he fights to make sense of why all of this is happening. Prince Edward can only freeze there, the crushing weight of his family's mistake pinning him in place. The king finally snaps, roaring that he needs to know. Why won't Ludo use his power for them anymore? The prime minister throws his hands up, screaming that all of this was Ludo's fault. Because if he'd just been useful, none of it would have happened. Plain and simple. The king erupts in rage. No matter how much power he holds, Ludo is still nothing but a useless captive. Klaus' icy glare slices through the room, daring them to explain what incompetence even means. He leans in and asks if they honestly think they're the only ones capable in this mess. The king sputters in rage, demanding to know if Klaus even dares to call them worse than the traitor who left them behind. Klaus wears pure contempt on his face. Yeah, that's exactly what he's saying. He lays bare every one of their failures, then banishes a top noble, only to watch him still tear through the world in a rampage he can't stop. His adjutant remembers the battlefield turning into total chaos, right from their own disastrous leadership. Klaus snaps that when the invasion mysteriously just stopped, they didn't even lift a finger to investigate. Talk about dropping the ball. Even now, he keeps on saying it. What they've done is nothing but lose face, with no real plan to save them. Their failures piled up endlessly, each one a brutal reminder that this mess was built by their own hands. Klaus adds that word of a brand new magic god is already ripping through the capital, ready to greet Ludo the moment he arrives. The king demanded an answer. How on earth were they even supposed to know any of this was coming? Klaus tells them the Empire deliberately planted stories about Ludo, but they were so clueless they didn't even realize what they'd unleashed. The king finally snaps, pointing at the young general and accusing him of getting wildly arrogant. But Klaus just smirks and presses, asking if he'd rather tear up the truce negotiations altogether. He drops the bombshell that, even before this meeting was scheduled, the Empire had already paid Ludo off and settled every contract. Ludo struck a truce, but the king's moves almost instantly tossed that peace straight into danger. Klaus coldly declares that the king's answer changes nothing for them. Accept it or reject it, it makes zero difference. And then he admits it. Yeah, they straight up baited him, praying he'd refuse the offer. That's next-level reverse psychology right there. While Zone keeps his cool and listens in, the king's rage burns hot in the background. Klaus's adjutant stands there, locking onto every move with a cold, unblinking stare. The king snaps at last. He chokes down his pride and screams, "I accept the truce." Klaus just dryly watches the king go from roaring rage to pathetic, instant obedience. But the king isn't finished. He snarls that they'll live to regret every second of today. He says he'll turn the truce into pure power, then comes swinging to crush the Empire. Klaus just flashes that smirk, clearly entertained by this sudden, totally baseless burst of confidence. The king unveils his master plan: push for a prisoner exchange and haul Ludo right back like it's all part of the scheme. Pure galaxy brain brilliance. The whole imperial delegation can only gawk in stunned silence, judging in shock. Klaus's face shows nothing but raw, gut-punching pity for the man standing in front of him. He calmly says, "If those negotiations ever actually pull off, I'll end up regretting it," like he already sees the disaster coming. The king roars that he'll drag Ludo back and make them choke on the humiliation they just dished out. Zone just smirks, cool and composed, confirming that the truce is officially locked in. The king slams his demand down. Start the repatriation talks for Ludo right now. Zone casually flips open the list of prisoners and throws out their release prices like it's no big deal. The king rips through the document, eyes blazing as he demands to know where Ludo's name went. As he reads, terror snaps into his expression like a punch to the gut. He erupts in a storm of rage, screaming at the imperial delegation. But Zone, Klaus, and Lambert don't even flinch at his outburst. Zone hears ignorance ask what in the world is wrong, and you can tell he's taking it a little too much like it's a game. The king slams his fists down and snaps, "Where's Ludo? Why isn't he on the list?" The prime minister stammers as the terrifying truth clicks in. Paying this price would drain their national budget for decades. Zone calmly adjusts his glasses and tells them, "Pay the fee, and Ludo's officially yours." The king snaps at the outrageous price, but Zone grins and insists it's backed by rock-solid logic. He breaks down the price and says it's calculated from the worth of two others, Acacia and Stark. That's what he claims. A magic god's true worth is just one thing, an entire nation's military power, all packed into a single being. He smirks while laying out the formula like it's ironclad math, weighing years of service and the economic fallout, and then he breaks it all down in a razor-detailed invoice. The king and prince just lock eyes with them, stunned into silence, while rage burns bright behind their wide-open stares. The king snaps to it. If he drains the treasury and hammers his own people with taxes, he can push them into oblivion just to get Ludo back. But he refuses to swallow it. He explodes with a roar, saying that this totally ridiculous demand isn't going to stand. Zone calmly urged them to take a quick break, just enough to cool off before things boiled over. The prime minister can only slap down a defeated agreement, his spirit shattered, utterly crushed. Zone scoffs and demands, "So how much longer are you going to insult the Empire's intelligence?" He scoffs that this pathetic performance is nowhere near worthy of a king. Klaus shuts his eyes, and the whole thing just stops mattering to him. The young general makes one bold decision, whips around and strides out of the room. He storms out in silence, and Zone just stares, realizing the show is finally over. The King of Rand snaps completely. He erupts in a scream, swearing he'll never ever accept this. Zone tells them to slow down and talk it through, then pivots and slips after Klaus. Looks like the grown-ups are finally backing out of the room, but he stops mid-breath and drops one last, spine-tingling warning. He blasts the truth at them. Those picked to become magic gods have already thrown away their past lives. He leans in and demands to know if they honestly think Ludo will actually pull them back in with open arms. The story cuts to a massive ceremony, where a powerful man steps up and pours his heart out to his beloved citizens. He stands before the massive crowd and declares, loud and proud, that this chance is an honor he'll never take for granted. From the sea of faces in the crowd, one watcher studies everything with a razor-sharp, judgmental stare. He can't believe they're going so all-in with a massive, showy display. Like, why would they do that? With a knowing smirk, the young woman tells you it's the only move to unveil the new magic god. The speaker's voice booms louder and louder over the whole plaza. She lays it all out. How this move strengthens their power, fuels the economy, and sends a chilling message to their rivals. Ludo sits right beside her, and he looks totally, painfully unimpressed by the whole thing. But the woman's smile slinks into something sly, and she's got one last reason to set this whole spectacle in motion. She finally spills the real truth, declaring them husband and wife, and sealing their names with what's real. Ludo shrugs and claims it's only an engagement, but she snaps back. She's certain the wedding is already set in stone. He can only let out a heavy sigh, because their views on this thing don't even match up. They clash completely. But she flashes a smile and says, plain as day, that for her nation, this kind of political compromise is basically a walk in the park. Ludo points out that, on top of everything, he's been forced to run a territory he never even asked for. She's practically glowing with excitement, insisting it'll be a great experience, even if she isn't a princess anymore. He blurts out, confused like, why does it feel like the women from my country are used to getting hated? His eyes slide to Acacia, and he spots it instantly. She's sizing herself up against the flame god. She's practically exploding with joy, counting the seconds until she finally gets to introduce him to everyone. Ludo scoffs at the thought of being propped up by a useless fiancé, then snaps back that a guardian god's whole job is simply to stand by. The speaker whips around and snaps, all right, let's get down to business. He lets out a savage roar, daring the ice and flame gods to smash together and settle it. Two men stand face to face like total opposites, and a silent challenge slashes through the air between them. Ludo's gaze stays locked and sharp, his resolve hardening as he readies himself for the spectacle about to explode. The official stands right in front of him, flashing a smug, confident smirk like he already knows how this ends. He needles Ludo, smirking, and asks if the young god has finally lost his nerve. Ludo just scoffs in his face, telling him to drop the theatrics and get on with it. All eyes of the whole nation lock on him as he steps up to the balcony's edge. He announces he'll hit them with a taste of his real power first. He lifts his hand, and a blazing light starts swelling over the crowd like it's about to explode. The officials turn to the empire's citizens, his fresh compatriots, and delivered the message that would shake everyone awake. The crowd down below can't do a thing but stare up, utterly baffled, and hanging on every second. He orders them to stare up at the sky and witness the terrifying power of ice. A sudden wave of gasps erupts across the plaza, and everyone starts pointing like they just witnessed something unbelievable. The sky erupts in a stunning burst of light, sparkling like the whole universe dumped its brightest stars right above them. Every soul in the city seems to freeze mid-breath, glued to the spectacle like their eyes can't look away. Even a mom and her kid halt in the street, staring in stunned awe at what they're seeing. A hand shoots out of nowhere and snatches the sparkling particles right out of the air as they tumble down. Ludo's fiancée stares, and then it hits. Recognition dawns across his face. She leans in and whispers its name, and a breathtaking cloud of diamond dust shimmers to life around her. He blares that this is his power, and then drops the bomb that it's only a tiny sliver of everything he can do. Down below, the crowd can barely breathe. Then it hits them, piece by piece, and the truth spreads like fire. Now they've got proof. Some fresh magic god has officially slammed down onto the empire. He steps in and introduces himself as Ludo, the empire's brand new Grand Duke. Then he drops the bombshell. He's from the Rand Kingdom, and it's their newest enemy. He finally admits it. Once upon a time, he was their enemy, a prince from the mighty Rand royal family. Ludo looks them straight in the eye, admits their fear and suspicion are real, and insists he won't deny what they're feeling. He tells them to fire every doubt right at him, because he'll win their trust just like that. And honestly, it's a swagger-filled job interview. But he roars that he won't be dragged around by their whims. He's not that weak. Even a god doesn't need mortals to clap for him. He explains that the moment a child starts to cry, a higher power steps in and wipes every tear away. He steps up to the crowd and shouts that he's burned his old homeland behind him. Now he's here to serve the empire. His old subordinates stare in silence as he lays it out. The emperor has handed him a brand new purpose. He stares at everything he's carved out: status, wealth, and the freedom he finally gave his men. Eyes narrowed, determination blazing, he knows there's only one move left. He roars that he'll be the empire's shield, and the spear that drives straight through its enemies. He lifts his hand, flashes a grin at the crowd, and demands they accept him as their own, both their compatriot and their magic god. His fiancée leans in with a pleased smile, like she already knows the speech will go perfectly, right on cue. Ludo lifts his hand one last time, sealing his vow to the people with a single, final gesture. He grabs his fiancée's hand and proudly unveils their union to the whole nation. He grips his fiancée's hand tight and squeezes. No words needed, just a clear, silent message. She jerks her gaze up at him, completely thrown by that sudden move. Then Ludo comes back swinging, announcing his fresh imperial title, Ludo Sale Coin. He lets out a thunderous roar and declares, "I'm the Grand Duke of the Flozal Empire now." And there she is, Lisa Lotta, the third princess, and his fiancé. Guess it's official on Facebook now. The princess flashes a soft, satisfied smile as the public declaration rings out. Down in the streets, the crowd erupts, cheers smashing the air as they celebrate their brand new hero. Ludo stares in silence, face locked tight as the whole scene hits him. The grand ceremony dies down, and all that's left hanging in the air is a quiet, cloudy sky. But then the whole story tilts into a pitch-black nightmare. Something sinister crawls through the void, and that pressure keeps swelling higher and higher. He trudges right into a sea of faceless strangers, where the crowd surges around him like a living storm. But he jerks back in shock, because he recognizes this place, and he knows this land like he's been here before. And right across from him stands a man he's known before, someone from his past, locked in his memory, a shadow of a past life he swore he'd buried for good. He's sure this man is meant for him, but before the thought can even settle, it gets ripped away. His fist tightens, yanking him out of the deep, crushing grip of that memory. Ludo jolts upright in bed, heart pounding, as he realizes it was all just a dream. He can't stop thinking about it. It's the first dream he's had since becoming a magic god, and yeah, even gods get hit with nightmares. As the morning sun spills through the window, he decides it's time to rip himself out of bed. Then right outside his door, a gentle, familiar voice calls out to him. Right when he arrives, it's his fiancée, Liselot, who beams and greets him with a bright, cheerful good morning. He leans in and tells them it's only his second day in this brand new land. She smiles softly, steering him to the dining table like everything depends on it. They're in Sandarica, a salty coastal territory where the emperor rules with his own two hands. When the map is uncovered, it screams the truth. This isn't just any harbor, it's one of the empire's most priceless financial gold mines. And this land, now known as the Gascon territory, has been handed straight to Liselata. She tells him this is the empire's way of screaming, "We value you more than you know." But she just smiles like, "All right, let's run with the official story for now." And somehow everyone goes along with it. He scoffs at the idea of some new god getting babysat by a 12-year-old girl. And yeah, it sounds like he's got zero interest in this new babysitter. She asks if he's got plans for work, but Ludo just smirks and tells her he's taking it easy. Liselot snaps that he'd better not stir up pointless chaos, just because he's in a place he doesn't recognize. But Ludo shuts it down fast, saying he'll still coast through his duties with the absolute bare minimum. The princess was caught off guard by how fast he threw himself into helping. Ludo realizes, like a gut punch, he can't just stand by while a younger girl handles everything. Pride won't let him. He vows to live up to the empire's expectations, because getting placed here isn't just a spot. It's a promise he intends to keep. He flashes a simple fix for the port's seafood freshness problem: freeze everything. Just make ice. Liselot hesitates, then shoots him a worried look, asking if he's really sure he wants to stick his nose into politics. Ludo flat out says building an entire industry that hinges on one single person is a disaster waiting to happen. Liselot flashes a grateful smile, takes his offer with both hands, and swears she'll put it to work for everyone who needs it. She says she wants to repay the warm welcome they've been given, and it leaves Ludo totally stunned. A massive parade crashes through the city streets, and the crowd erupts, screaming and cheering like they've been waiting for this moment all their lives. The crowd erupts in pure joy, screaming with relief, because their brand new leaders have finally arrived in Sandarica. The royal carriage barrels through the cheering crowd, soaking up every glorious stare. Princess Liselot sweeps the crowd with a flawless, graceful wave, playing her part like she was born for it. But inside, Ludo sits across from her, and his face says he's not exactly thrilled with all this attention. He leans against the window and watches the crowd erupt in cheers, silently soaking in every roar of his own welcome party. His face screams pure, unfiltered boredom. Guest parades, yeah, they're not his thing at all. Everyone whips around in awe, staring wide-eyed at the legendary ice god like they've just witnessed something they shouldn't even be real. The procession rolls on, hundreds of hands waving them forward like the whole city is cheering them down the streets. Liselot shuts her eyes, a tiny satisfied smile curling on her lips. Everything's right on schedule. Back at the dining table, Liselot grills Ludo about how his city inspection went. Ludo finally admits it. Sandarica's people hit him with pure, unstoppable energy, and it left him a little overwhelmed. He tells you the whole town won't stop talking. Everybody's buzzing about their brand new magic god. He even tracked down a local treasure, a plain but mighty soup brewed from fish and seawater. Liselot leans in, eyes locked on the dish, then bursts out asking what he's got planned for the day. Ludo decides to ride into another inspection, stomping through the sunlit streets like he's hunting answers. The port city is buzzing non-stop. Crowds surge through the streets while trade roars like a heartbeat. He drinks in the sights and sounds of his brand new home, a whole universe cut loose from the battlefield. He follows the road straight to a tavern sign, Seagull Pavilion. Ludo grins, realizing this is exactly where that food stall owner told him to go. He bursts into the tavern, and the loud, buzzing chatter of the patrons hits him like a wave. A bright young waiter with a grin bigger than the menu gestures him toward an open table. Ludo drops into a seat and instantly realizes the place is packed way tighter than he ever expected. A young waiter steps up, and Ludo wastes no time. He drills him with a few sharp questions. He can't believe it. This hidden gem is stuffed wall to wall, absolutely packed. The staff darts back and forth, double-checking like crazy because the tavern's insane popularity is blowing everyone's minds. A smug smirk flickers across his face as the truth hits. He's the reason everything suddenly explodes into motion. The staff is swamped and the memory snaps back. How that food vendor kept shouting, "Everyone come here. Bet you can't outrun rumors when a god rolls into town." Ludo snaps the young waiter's attention into place, ready to slam down his order. He orders up some ale and digs into a local dish, practically itching to taste what this town is famous for. The waiter grins and pitches their newest obsession, hot, freshly served fried potatoes. Ludo freezes, totally clueless about that local delicacy. The boy blurts out that it's nothing like a usual dish. He cooked the whole idea up himself. Ludo leans in and asks the kid, "Did you make this?" Then points out, "And your accent. It's not from around here, is it?" The waiter tells everyone that he and his sister packed up from their hometown and came here to work at the tavern. Ludo shoots off an apology, worried he pushed too far with his questions. But the boy just smirks and shrugs it off like it's totally natural. Of course, someone like him would be curious. He spills his real dream, becoming an inventor, and you can see it in him. He absolutely lives for building brand new things. Ludo leans in, staring hard, while the boy blurts out how his creation can't possibly be that unpopular. A grin suddenly lights up Ludo's face when he realizes this dish is the boy's very first invention. Ludo leans in and tells the boy, "Yeah, it might have started somewhere else, but that doesn't change the fact that this is a magnificent invention." A shy young waiter turns scarlet, absolutely stunned that someone, out of nowhere, just praised him. The boy beams, soaking up the gratitude, and Ludo flips a coin toward him like a tip. The waiter lunges for it, eyes bulging as shock hits him. He just keeps staring at the imperial silver coin like it's the most shocking thing he's ever laid eyes on. Ludo shoots a quick apology for sticking his nose in, then slams down a command for ale and fried potatoes. The boy tells him, "I'm Rick," and vows to hook him up with extra service for being so kind. Ludo just shrugs and says he can't wait for it. Then he spots a woman glaring at them and asks, "Is that Rick's sister?" And you can already tell somebody's about to get into serious trouble. Rick panics, scurries off in a blur, and leaves Ludo stuck waiting for his meal. Ludo sits there and watches the siblings snap at each other, but he can't help thinking they somehow get along too well. He smirks to himself, entertained by the weird bond he just forged with the young inventor. Just moments later, a sizzling plate of fried potatoes hits the table in front of him, steaming hot. Rick's sister strides up with his ale, and before he can say a word, she apologizes for her brother's rude manners. To thank him for being so kind, she leans in and tells him she slipped him an extra-large portion. Ludo grabs a fry and stares at it like it's the most bizarre mystery he's ever seen. He takes a bite, then braces himself to either crush or praise the boy's first invention. A smug, slow grin crawls across his face, and yeah, it hits like pure, delicious victory. But his fun gets wrecked in an instant. Searing pain slams him, like the universe just ran out of easy mode and hit him with the real deal. Across the room, Rick's sister snaps at a bunch of rowdy patrons, shouting that the tavern's already packed. 3 local thugs roll in as a tight trio, and you can tell they're hunting for a fight. Ludo takes a gulp of his ale and smirks, because every festival somehow summons the biggest idiots imaginable. Rick tries to calm them down, speaking politely as he pleads for them to hold tight and wait for a table to open up. But they don't even hesitate. They shove him away and bark, "Get lost," like they've got zero time for his patience. Ludo can't help but think that every time people crowd together, public order is doomed to unravel. The tension snaps. One of the men suddenly yanks Rick by the shoulder. The group's leader bears down on the boy, trying to scare him off, and demands he get out of their way. Ludo's face turns grim, and just like that, his peaceful meal gets ruthlessly cut short. Rick's sister steps up, snaps at the men to back off, and tells them to stop harassing the other customers. But the second she pleads, a thug snaps, shoving her hard to the ground. And yeah, they just picked the wrong tavern to pick a fight in. The thug growls at them to get out, now, before he decides to hurt them. Rage bubbles in his chest as he snaps that Rick is a worthless brat. With a thunderous roar, he surges forward, fists cocked, and launches into a punch like he means to end the fight right there. But his fist whooshes past Ludo, and Ludo just stares with pure, deadpan boredom at the whole show. One clean, perfectly timed foot, boom, sends that thug stumbling on his face. His eyes go wide in pure shock as he loses his footing. Ludo lunges in time and catches his drop, crashing his face straight into the wooden floor. Yeah, that went from zero to chaos in a blink. His eyes stayed ice cold, like none of that sudden violence could even rattle him. That thug crumples to the ground, twitching, out cold from one brutal hit. Every last person in the tavern freezes mid-breath, eyes locked, staring in total stunned disbelief. Ludo calmly shifts his focus to the two thugs, still standing in his way. They just stand there staring back in shock, their bravado obliterated. He orders them to haul their unconscious friend away and vanish. But the shock snaps into pure rage, and they yank their blades free, refusing to back an inch. Ludo lifts one finger, and a chilling wisp of energy starts to gather right at the tip. A knife slams into the table between them, slicing the air with one last warning. No words needed. Just then, a third crew member bursts into view, an icy-eyed woman wielding twin blades. Even with reinforcements showing up, the thugs are still sweating, because they can feel it now. They're totally outmatched. Ludo shuts his eyes, completely unfazed by their loud posturing. But that blistering heat from the hot potato fry keeps wrecking his focus. Yeah, priorities, people. A sharp, pained cry cuts through the air, because Ludo's tongue is still burning, and it's the only battle he can't escape. The female thug eyes their moves and quickly clocks their skill. She's sure they've got to be former mercenaries. But Rick's sister just grins, and when she talks, she drops the bomb. She once attended the Magic Academy. Ludo stares, and then it clicks. Her confidence isn't random at all. She strides in with fearless pride and declares, "I'm Natra, Rick's older sister, and I'm way stronger." The thug flips the script mid-attack, roaring that casting magic during a fight is a serious crime. The threat hits, right as Rick and Natra snap into sudden, worried concern. Ludo lets out a frustrated sigh, instantly regretting stepping into it. So much for a peaceful meal. That thug swaggered and bragged that his brother sits in the city guard, then promised he'll haul every last one of them behind bars. But Natra's face tightens like steel, and her resolve doesn't budge an inch, even when that threat rings hollow. Ludo calmly tells Rick to grab some rope, then says he'll take these thugs to jail himself. The young waiter freezes in shock, stuttering that they can't just pull that move. But Ludo's smile fades as his words hit. He admits he carries real weight here. Rick and Natra just freeze, stunned that this random stranger can bark orders with that kind of authority. The thug is totally stunned, like his brain can't even keep up with what's happening. Everything snaps together. Someone new with power has to be a noble, bent on serving the new lord. The thug breaks into a cold sweat as he realizes posing as a noble is a guaranteed death sentence. Ludo just smirks. Yeah, he's only confirmed he has a certain standing, and that's it. Honestly, he's playing the mystery card. Then he pushes them to head straight to the city guard and get the truth out in the open. The thug snaps instantly. Terror floods him as he turns into a sobbing, blubbering wreck. 3 thugs crumple onto the floor, tightly bound and perfectly lined up, ready to be shipped off. Rick grins and steps up right away, then hauls the thugs off the scene all by himself. He drags them on a humiliating walk and tells them straight up, their futures hang by a thread. Rick and Natra gawk in total disbelief as their mysterious benefactor vanishes into thin air. But back at the mansion, Ludo gets ambushed by a furious attendant who demands answers. Right now, the man chews him out for starting a scene the second they set foot in their new territory. Ludo sprawls on the couch and tells him, all casual, that he already apologized. Guess that's supposed to end it. The attendant lets out a heavy sigh, admitting his choices are making Princess Lysolot 2 look bad. He shoots a warning that those rumors of discord could spiral fast, but Ludo just shrugs it off like it's nothing. Ludo jerks upright, swearing he gets the political implications perfectly, like there's no question left at all. Ludo sized up the situation and thought, if that attendant pushes him, he'll just take action himself. He snaps around and heads out, shouting that he's going straight to see Lysolot right now. He tells them this late-night visit will settle everything for good and prove, once and for all, that they're on solid terms. He tells himself the only thing that matters is the gesture, because it doesn't matter whether she's already passed out. He tells the attendant, if you get it, follow me, but don't come too close, because in the end he can't let anyone spot him with the help. The attendant shoots back, asking if Ludo's really about to lecture him on political power plays. Ludo nods, yep, that's it, then waves him off like he's already gone. With that, he strides down the mansion's grand, moonlit hallway like he owns the night. He bursts into a sprint, refusing to stop until his plan is done. He finally makes it, right in front of the princess's ornate chamber doors, staring them down like fate has brought him here. He nods like a man who's found home, and his resolve locks in for good. He slams the door with a knock and boldly announces himself to the princess. From the inside, Lysolot hears his voice, and the surprise in her tone hits like a shock. She swings the door wide and demands to know what on earth brings him here at this late hour. Ludo shoots her an apology for the delay and quickly asks, did I catch you at a bad time? But she just grins and shrugs it off, saying she was only soaking in the moonlit sea. He explains that his attendant was panicking, claiming he'd been neglecting his fiancée, so he's decided they're going to spend time together to crank up their bond. Yeah, it's a cold, calculated political play through and through. Lysolot's smile curls into something sly, and she teases him, calling him bold for showing up this late at night. Ludo locks eyes with her, and in the dim light his face gives away nothing. Ludo locks in her gaze and tells her, straight up, she's free to turn him down and refuse his company. But she just grins, totally owning it like, yeah, that's payback for him showing up out of nowhere. Once the battle's over, she wastes no time. She personally ushers him into her private chambers. The balcony doors swing open, and boom, the vast, star-studded night sprawls out before them. He steps inside, and it hits him like lightning. This place is totally stripped down compared to the room's flashy, over-the-top decor. He gestured like crazy, basically insisting, sit, and then took over the conversation. Beneath the moonlit sky, she leans in and asks what he's dying to talk about this late. She flashes a knowing smile and straight up asks, is this about matters of state? Or maybe she drops a whole new reason for why he's really showing up. She asks if he's here to talk about splitting up and taking separate actions. And honestly, that question hits like a bomb. Lysolot's grin hits like a challenge as she leans in and asks, so, you ready to make our union official? She slips a hand onto his shoulder and promises, if this is truly what you want, I'm not going to stand in your way. Ludo freezes for a split second, totally blindsided by her daring proposal. But his shot instantly turns into a knowing smirk. Yeah, okay, two can play this game. He tells her, yeah, it's adorable when a kid tries to play grown-up, but trust me, you're way too young for this. He says her seduction tricks only look like a kid wearing borrowed clothes. Lysolot's face twists, and her perfectly staged smile shatters like glass. She can only slump and sigh in defeat. Her little test just blew up in her face. She finally admits it. He slipped out of her trap so cleanly that she couldn't even find a shred of room to argue. Ludo just smirks and tells her it was so obvious from the very beginning that the whole act never stood a chance. He lays it out in plain sight, saying her seduction was nothing but a rehearsed act, just for show. Lieselotte listens while he lays it out. Only a fool would buy that weak, half-hearted excuse. He keeps talking and you can hear it. If she's really serious about closing that gap, she'd go all in and take action fast. Ludo smirks and snaps that if she can't even sell a convincing act, then it's all a waste. Looks like her acting career is dead on arrival. Her confident smile finally fractures the moment his razor-sharp analysis hits. She shuts her eyes, crushed, and finally admits, yeah, he's completely right. Ludo's voice suddenly turns gentle, and he blurts out an apology for talking down to her and treating her like she's just a kid. Lieselotte lifts her gaze, stunned by his apology, then scolds herself under her breath for everything she just did. He grins and tells her, "We're only just getting started," then admits a real relationship is still a long, long road away. She agrees, and right then she pushes the point. Maybe that's the whole reason they need to talk more and finally forge a real connection. Lieselotte's smile is real and bright as she nods, because this right here is the first step for the two of them as a couple. Ludo cuts in, steering the conversation to his earlier city observations and urging them to dig into what he saw that day. She points down at the moonlit city and beckons him to start, but then the story snaps to a brand new time and place, boom, and introduces a fresh, electrifying new face. A spiky-haired young man planted himself in the middle of a roaring city square, grinning like he couldn't wait to get his hands on the inventions everywhere. As he pushes through the crowd, the whole atmosphere hits him. Shockingly, it's dead and lifeless. He screeches to a halt at a market stall, eyes locked on one of the items on display, curiosity blazing like never before. The vendor leans in and tells me his apprentice forged it, then hands it over like a steal, promising it's the perfect cheap gift for his lady friend. The young man just smirks and cracks a cheeky joke, telling the vendor to get his own partner to buy it instead. As he strides off, the vendor lets it slip that this item is forged in the Ramuro kingdom. He can't stop geeking out over the traditional patterns from a faraway western land. But right then, a familiar face in the crowd yanks his attention like lightning. It's Rick, the young waiter who locks eyes with the stranger and snaps to attention, like he just recognized him. The spiky-haired guy looks just as shocked to find the young inventor standing here. He confirms it's Rick from the Sigil Pavilion, miles and miles away from home. Rick lights up with pure joy, stunned that this stranger actually remembers him. The man grabbed his attention and told him to wait just a second. He needed to say something, right now. He whirls back to the vendor and decides to grab one of the fabrics. He asks, "Got any more like this?" while wishing he had the cash to grab every single one. Classic window shopping dreamer. The vendor shoots him a grateful smile, then tells him straight up that he's been a fixture in this city for ages. The man leans in and swears to the vendor, "I'll swing by my main store soon," like it's a promise he'll die keeping. He bolts back to Rick, breathless, and throws out a heartfelt apology for making the young inventor wait. Rick can't stop staring at the fabric like, why did I even buy this? Because that guy usually just strolls by in window shops. The man flashes a grin and admits it. His obsession with rare treasures is exactly what dragged him here to this city. The young inventor leans in, eyes locked, and you can practically see the moment it all clicks. Then he asks if Rick came here to shop too, but the kid hesitates like he's not sure he should answer. But Rick's hesitation crumbles into a proud grin, because he's finally here to open his very own stall. The man's eyes flare with excitement, hooked by the boy's sheer ambition. He drops a steady hand on Rick's shoulder, pushing courage into him with one simple, fearless gesture. Rick gets all flustered and tries to play down his own creations, but the truth is, this guy can't wait to see them. The man flashes a grin and tells Rick to take the lead, swearing he'll buy anything that catches his eye. A new title card flashes on screen, boom, revealing the boy as Rick, the mastermind behind fried potatoes. A wild flash of memory hits, Rick's simple, heartfelt dream of becoming an inventor burning brighter than ever. The story snaps back to Ludo, staring at his new, crushing title inside the Floisal Empire, and realizing just how heavy it really is. Back in the city, Rick grabs his new friend and points him straight to his humble little market stall. They burst into a dusty courtyard, where vendors spread their wares on plain blankets like treasure waiting to be snatched. The traveler scans the place and clocks the shabby real estate. Yeah, this is what starting from the bottom looks like. Rick tells them, plain and blunt. Without connections, this was the absolute best spot he could claw his way into. But the second he spots her familiar face, his whole mood lights up, because his sister is back. Natra spots her brother and shouts his name, showing up in that chaos like a breath of relief in the middle of the bustling market. Nacho squints at the traveler, and bam, he recognizes him as the mysterious tavern customer. Ludo flashes a smile, replaying the moment he subtly teased his noble roots back then. He tells them, "Don't worry," then shrugs it off and admits he doesn't usually flex his authority. Natra then leans in and demands to know what happened to those thugs they just took down at the Seagull Pavilion. Ludo halts for a beat, flashes an awkward little smile, and looks like he doesn't know what to do with himself. He shrugs and says they were sentenced to forced labor in the mines. So yeah, looks like they're not about to bother anyone for a while. He flips the conversation instantly and leans in with burning excitement, begging Rick to show off his newest inventions. Scattered across the blanket is a wild pile of tools, hangers, and weird contraptions that look like they belong in a different world. Ludo can't hide his awe. He's blown away by just how clean and top-tier the metalwork looks. Rick beams and tells everyone that these fruits are the proof of his hard work and dedication. Ludo leans in and demands, "So, you're the one who forged that metalwork, Natra." Rick drops the bombshell. Their family runs a magic workshop, and Natra is the one who crafts everything by hand. Ludo can't help but beam as she realizes her skills are the kind everyone scrambles to get. But Natra drops her ego and insists she's just thrilled to back her brother's dream. Ludo locks eyes with them and realizes these two siblings are all either one has. He asks for a recommendation, and Rick can't wait to throw his absolute best work at him. He lifts a weird gadget and swears it's treasure for any camper, an insane pitch for a tiny metal stick. Ludo's eyes lock in, sharp and blazing, as that strange new tool sparks his curiosity to a whole new level. Rick proudly unveils it like a beast of a high-performance fire starter. He shows how one clean strike can snap into a blazing, powerful spark. But Natra barrels right in, totally unfazed by her brother's over-the-top sales pitch. She insists that a normal fire starter is totally good enough, and screams that it's way cheaper. Rick swears his version still works even when it's drenched, so he claims it's a real investment. Ludo grabs the device, and you can practically see his curiosity spike from the sibling argument. He pushed his limits, then a brilliant spark lit up the moment, proving the young inventor's claim was real. His smile vanishes, and he goes dead serious as he presses Rick for the exact way he built it. He blurts out a quick apology, realizing his tone might have gone a little too hard. Ludo leans in and asks if Natra's magic did the work. Was it all made using Rick's idea? Then he leans in and demands to know, do you have the prototype, or at least a single fragment of the original? The siblings shoot each other a knowing look, then silently confirm it. Yeah, they're on the same page. Ludo's face went stone-cold serious. He just spotted something worth more than everything. He orders the siblings to pack up their stall and clear out of the invention fair. Without a single more word, he flicks a coin over his shoulder, paying them off for their time. But this coin isn't ordinary at all. It's stamped with the Grand Duke's crest. He tells them to deliver it to the Gascogna ducal residence in the next few days. Rick and Natra freeze in total shock, utterly stunned by that sudden command. He leans in and demands an answer, and they immediately start stammering out their agreement. With one last wave, he tells them, "Don't you dare be late." And yeah, that's definitely one way to lock down an appointment. They can only stand there, watching him vanish, their minds spinning from what just happened. Across the city, a hard-eyed man stalks the streets, searching frantically for the one person he can't afford to miss. The stern-faced man is Ludo's attendant, and he's been shadowing him for who knows how long. He leans in and tells Ludo he's got one more message, something important he needs him to pass along. Ludo lifts the fabric he just bought and fires off a question. What's it even mean, and why does it matter? The attendant leans in and tells him it's a one-of-a-kind import, so that's why he snatched it up. Ludo jumps straight to the point and demands to know what the real message is. Start with the first instruction. Slip Rick and Natra into the mansion. Quietly, no one must notice. The attendant lets it slip. He'd been quietly tracking the siblings the whole time, and he's calling them seriously promising talent. Then he confirms it. Ludo showed them the ducal crest, and that symbol is going to haunt their memories for a long, long time. Elsewhere, a different merchant hawks matching fabrics and rallies his own people to rise and conquer the city. The attendant shoots Ludo one final warning. Don't let it get to your head. But our boy is already gone. Inside the moonlit mansion, Ludo leaned into Liselot and announced he had 2 bombshells to report. The princess leans in, eyes wide, like she can't believe the conversation just flipped in that instant. Ludo finally admits it's serious business, the kind of political talk he can't stand. Liselot's eyes widened in a flash, and pure surprise hit her like a wave. She realizes that if he's bringing up politics, it can only mean one thing. This topic is genuinely a big deal to him. He wastes zero time, straight to the point, because today, right in the city, he spots divine soldiers. Her playful smile snaps off like a switch, and a razor-focused stare locks in as she presses for every last detail. These aren't ordinary soldiers at all. They're the blessed followers of the magic god, Stark. They're tactical-level mages, turbocharged into an unstoppable battle machine, basically a walking army. Liselot's mind slams into a chilling memory, watching one lone shot tear through an entire elite Imperial squad. Ludo tells everyone this. Stark can hand his power to whoever he wants, and he can choose them himself. That's why the divine soldiers can get swapped out with zero trouble, even if they're still just kids. These tactical-level mages can bend reality, yet in covert missions, they're treated like disposable pawns. Liselot fires the question, how did you spot them? Because she knows the enemy is already moving and every second counts. He admits it was pure luck, and he still has no clue how big their plan really is. Ludo leans in and asks her straight up if she's ever felt the unique aura of a magic god, their divine authority wrapped in power. She nods and admits she's heard of it. She instantly realizes it's the very thing behind their terrifying power. He tells them he spotted that exact same aura pouring out of one of the figures in the city. But even with that sixth sense buzzing in his bones, he still couldn't pin down what they were really sent to do. Liselot's eyes turn ice cold. Putting them out in the open like that is a gutsy move, and it reeks of bad intentions. Ludo tells them, I can only vouch for you being in my territory, nothing more about where you go beyond it. Liselot can't stop thinking they're being dragged along with one ruthless assumption. Everyone's going to spot them. With the facts still fuzzy, she wastes no time, gears up her own forces, ready to strike back at once. Ludo's eyes slice through everything. He's already mapping out what happens next, step by step. He slips the truth like a blade. His own men are already on the ground, watching the targets and every inch of their surroundings. But he straight up admits his soldiers aren't spies, because if they dig too far, they'll expose everything about the enemy's plans. Liselot wastes no time. She reaches out to the Imperial army and begs for reinforcements right away. She fires a sharp question, are your men free now? Then lays it out. The Empire splits a noble's soldiers away from the main army like clockwork. Politics, am I right? Ludo remembers hearing rumors that the military was getting streamlined. Then his attendant snaps at him, yelling, back to work, and cuts the whole moment dead. Liselot makes it crystal clear. This is to stop any confusion and cleanly split the chains of command. She makes it crystal clear. If a military move is big enough, it goes straight under the army's direct control. But to stand up to the divine soldiers, she has to officially ask Ludo for help. Ludo's face hardens, because his men answer to him, not some bunch of peacetime freeloaders. Liselot flashes a pleased smile at his trustworthiness, and quickly agrees to carry his intentions to the next person. Ludo's eyes harden with iron resolve. If they strike, it'll be merciless all the way. Once the first report wraps up, Liselot leans in and demands answers about the second thing he just mentioned. He shrugs it off, saying it's not urgent at all, and it has nothing to do with the divine soldiers. The princess squints in disbelief, then asks, wait, Is this not just another political mess? Ludo tells them he spotted some seriously promising talent in the city, so he swept them up and invited them to the mansion. Total headhunting on his day off. He can't shake the feeling that Lisalata would be crazy to let someone this skilled slip past, and he starts thinking they've got to recruit that inventor. Lisalot says that if someone's gonna be scouted in person, they better be truly exceptional, because he doesn't do this for just anyone. But Ludo admits there's one little worry hanging in the air, and he has to deal with it first. The princess tilts her head, eyes narrowing, and demands to know what kind of problem he means. She demanded to know what he'd do if his worst fears turned out to be right. Ludo shot a gesture and said, "Fine, at the very least, I'm not going to just ignore it." His face twists into pure grim resolve. Come the moment, he'll do whatever has to be done. The story swings over to Rick and Natra's room. She's chewing him out, demanding he finally get some sleep. But Rick can't shake the nerves. He keeps spiraling, wondering what tomorrow is about to throw at them. He can't believe it. Somehow, they really got summoned to the ducal residence. He finally drops down to sleep, while Natra stays up, quietly staring at the impossible future like it might burst into flames. Natra can't sleep, staring at the dark as one brutal thought hits her. This entire mess is all because of her carefree little brother. She locks eyes on the ducal coin, and the shock hits her like a wave. This summons feels almost too unreal to be true. It can only mean one thing. This mysterious noble finally saw just how priceless Rick's invention really was. Then the tale flips back in time, zeroing in on the young inventor and how his past shaped everything. A slick title card flashes as Rick Ambrose comes into view. A strange, mysterious kid who feels like trouble waiting to happen. Ever since he was a kid, he carried wisdom way beyond his age, so much that the adults around him started to feel genuinely unsettled. But Rick shrugged it off and shoved his strange knowledge into action, dead set on putting it to real use. All he wanted was one thing: make life easier. That burning dream shoved him forward and turned him into the inventor who'd change everything. Then the scene snaps back to the Ambrose family workshop, the one she remembers as the happiest time of her life. Natra's face drops with grief as she remembers the way her parents hinted at a tragedy from their past. Natra clutches the memory of her tragedy. Robbers thundered in, tore her parents apart, and that's when she was forced to quit the Magic Academy. With nothing left to cling to, they finally stumbled into a fresh start, landing jobs with the kind owners of the Seagull Pavilion. After everything they've endured, she finally dares to hope. This could be the break they've been fighting for, the shot at a better life. The very next morning, Rick is practically vibrating with excitement, staring at the ducal summons like it's their golden ticket to finally crushing everything. But Natra's dream is refreshingly simple. She just wants a quiet life for herself and her brother. That night, Rick keeps vigil over his sleeping sister, swearing, right there and then, that he'll protect her no matter what it costs. She whispers his name in her sleep, totally oblivious to the vow he's keeping locked behind his silence. With a determined grin, he knows this shot has to pay off for both of them. He's all set to grab the best possible future, no matter what it costs, just to protect his sister. Back at the mansion, Lisalot is left speechless, grabbing Ludo and demanding he repeats what he just said. Ludo's eyes turn icy. His decision is sealed. He keeps saying, "If my hunch is right, then I'll have to get rid of them." And yeah, when he says them, he means Rick and his sister Natra both. The very next day, the siblings storm up to the Grand Ducal residence, right on cue, because they'd been summoned. Ludo slips into the room, tossing out a casual apology for the delay like it's nothing. Rick and Natra jerk upright, stammering, "We just got here." He tells them to chill, making it clear this isn't some stiff official audience. Rick breaks it down. One ducal coin bought him a VIP escort straight into this room. The young inventor finally connects the dots. Turns out their mysterious benefactor is absolutely huge. Ludo freezes mid-thought, realizing he never even introduced himself. So yeah, now it's time for the grand reveal. He steps forward and declares, loud and official, "Ludo Sale Coin, the Grand Duke of Gasconia." The siblings just freeze and stare, their brains scrambling to make sense of the bombshell they've heard. Ludo stares them down, And the second the truth finally clicks, his face gives away nothing. The realization slams into them, and they crumple to their knees, begging for forgiveness like their lives depend on it. Ludo's totally thrown off by their sudden, terrified groveling. Natra steps up and swears she'll take the punishment herself. Just say the word and she'll take it in her brother's place. Ludo shoots out a smirk, because they're taking this whole respect for nobility act way too seriously. He tells them to chill, saying their past run-ins are forgiven because he kept his identity hidden. But Ludo stalls for a second, grappling for the right words for what's about to happen next. Natra shoots upright, swearing on everything that she'll protect her brother no matter what it costs. Ludo leans in and demands whether her fierce protectiveness was forged by some brutal past with nobles. Rick stares on, his face twisted with fear and pure confusion. Ludo's eyes narrow, captivated by the fierce promise she keeps, no matter what, to protect her brother. Rick scrambles to make them understand. This bond isn't just family, it's everything they've got. Ludo can't shake the thought. Maybe their messed up situation means they're the only family each other has left. Then he lays down the rules for the interrogation, telling them to speak without fear. But then he drops a chilling warning. Any lie will be punished with brutal consequences. The siblings stammer out a terrified yes, because letting the guests talk freely, that's a line they simply won't cross. Ludo stops dead for a beat, face locked tight as he readies his questions. He finally spills the real reason for the summons, Rick's invention from the day before. Ludo double-checks the device and locks in the details. It's super easy to use, and it still works even when everything's soaking wet. He praises that high-performance fire starter as an absolute masterpiece of invention. Rick and Natra practically explode with joy, grinning from ear to ear at that surprise praise. But Ludo's voice flips on a dime. Now he's got a question gnawing at him, and he can't hold it back anymore. Rick leans in, all fired up, and demands what the Grand Duke wants to know. Ludo's face hardens. 1 second he's friendly, the next his grim expression takes over completely. The young inventor gets totally blindsided when a sudden, bone-chilling chill crashes over the scene. Ludo finally blurts it out. Why in the world did Rick choose to invent this specific thing? Rick Beams just shrugged and said he figured a waterproof fire starter would be the most convenient thing ever. Ludo nods like the logic checks out, then snaps back with Natura's sharper, more practical argument from the day before. Ludo snaps that a sane person wouldn't waste time trying to reinvent the fire starter. Natra just stares, totally flabbergasted, not a clue where any of this is headed. Ludo can't help thinking that inventors chase after ideas everyone else calls pointless. But he insists there's something weird about Rick's case, like the pieces just refuse to fit. He studies the whole complicated process and realizes it takes Natra's magic just to pull the thing off. Rick can't even speak. Sweat pours off his forehead as the walls start closing in. Ludo breaks it down and hits you with the core question, the real heart of everything. He'll take Natra's skill in a heartbeat, but he draws the line at her obeying her brother's blind orders. He finally fires the knockout question. Why in the world does Natra know the real story of how it was made? Rick can only freeze there, trapped in a corner where the Grand Duke's flawless logic leaves him zero room to escape. Ludo figures that if you want to use that kind of technology, you better have the knowledge to match its power. He figures Natra, the mage, won't just blindly copy her brother's moves on something this complicated. He finally corners Rick and demands to know if his invention was really just a copy, built off some pre-existing model. Ludo insists Rick didn't build it from zero, he truly knew magic could forge it.